Hi, I'm Claudia Cagan, supervising producer of Entertainment Tonight. I'm excited to be Jim Master's special guest on the Jim Master Show Live, starting right now.
Hey everybody, welcome live to the Jim Master Show Live Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show series. Hope you guys are doing well. Thanks for tuning in from all around the world. We're here on the East Coast of the United States and the New York area, and we're going to have a good time with our very special guest. Matter of fact, she's a return guest. If you saw the tribute, the celebrity-filled and fabulous tribute we did celebrating Peter Marshall, then you saw our very special guest. Look who's returning to the Jim Master Show Live Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show series. Boy, that's a mouthful. Claudia Cagan is here, Emmy-winning, multiple, 7-time Emmy-winning supervising producer for the one and only Entertainment Tonight, ET. Yes, of course, the beloved series we've watched and enjoyed for so many years, and she loves what she does. And again, 7 Emmys, absolutely incredible. Just got another one. The show just got another one in this particular year of 2024. We're very excited to have her here. She is coming from California, but we have so many rich stories to share about, what is it like being the supervising producer of the beloved Entertainment Tonight, but also her time in New York, growing up in the Bronx in good old New York City. You know, in addition to, of course, Entertainment Tonight, well, she has an illustrious career. She worked with Arsenio Hall to be able to get Bill Clinton on the Arsenio Hall show. Remember that very epic time when he played the sax on the show with the shades, President Bill Clinton? Absolutely. That was a cool experience for her working with Arsenio. And in addition to that, you may remember too that she worked on ABC's Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher. She's worked with Extra. She even worked with Hollywood Squares and the incomparable Tom Bergeron, of course, one of the great hosts of our time, television hosts and so much more. I remember when Tom Bergeron used to host People Are Talking on WBZ Channel 4 up in Boston. She also worked with E! News, and she went to school at the Fame School, yes, where so many went. Yes, LaGuardia. We're going to talk about all that and so much more. And if you didn't know, one of my dear friends, and she's been a guest on our show, and she is beloved by millions, and she's a sweetheart of a person, and she's a phenomenal Grammy-winning entertainer. You know who I'm talking about? You may not know this, but her sister is the incomparable Melissa Manchester. Yes, and this is a shot when we were together when she was at the Katharine Hepburn Performing Arts Center, and it was an incredible performance, and she's starring in a very special production. We're going to talk about that in just a second, and a whole host of other cool things. But wherever you're watching, thanks for tuning in. If this is your first time joining us here on the Jim Master Show Live series, we thank you very much for making us a part of your day. I want to tell you a little bit more about our very, very special guest. You know, she's very busy too. So for her to take time to return to the show, we just hit it off. I don't know what it is. It's a New York thing. Maybe I'm from New York originally, out east on Long Island. I don't know. It was just an automatic thing. She's fantastic, a new best friend. And when I mentioned that she was going to be on our show, so many people wrote to me personally. They texted, they called. They're like, oh my God, I love her. She's one of the best producers in the business. She's a wonderful person. She's a sweetheart. And you know what? All of you that have been reaching out to me saying that, you are absolutely right. Not only multiple Emmy winning, but just a really caring person. And she's got a wit that'll knock you on your socks. 7-time Emmy-winning television producer, started her career on the performing side of the business as a production singer and personal assistant. And she traveled all over the world with her sister, Grammy-winning singer-songwriter, the one and only Melissa Manchester, until she decided to make that transition into television production. And early on in her career, she was talent executive on the ARSENIO Hall Show, where besides TV and theater, she also booked classic and upcoming comedians of the 90s, including Margaret Cho, Chris Rock, just to name a few, all on the ARSENIO Hall Show. And again, we love this shot. We'll put that shot back up because that that is so iconic, and that really changed things in so many different ways for a lot of people that very special night. She also brought on Chris Tucker and Martin Lawrence, Ellen DeGeneres, Rosie O'Donnell, Howie Mandel, Jerry Seinfeld, George Wallace, and so many others. LEA DELARIA, the first openly gay female comedian to appear on a late night talk show as well. Many, many more. And she says it was an amazing time. One of her career highlights, too, was booking right there on your screen, then Governor Bill Clinton, who played some Elvis classics with the Posse on his sax and talked with ARSENIO about his aspirations to be president of the United States. How cool is that? It's one of those epic television moments, and she was right there on the front lines making that happen. As I mentioned, she also worked with Extra. Yeah, she worked with Extra as well. And still, of course, Entertainment Tonight, Politically Incorrect. And yeah, remember that on ABC? Hollywood Squares, so much more, numerous specials. And yeah, she's been doing this for a long time, and she absolutely loves it. And she's worked on a lot of different kinds of specials, projects, and good works too. And the awards just keep coming for Emmys. Again, just another one that was received recently for ET, Entertainment Tonight, your place to go for everything entertainment. Remember this old logo? Mary Hart and Company. Absolutely. My pleasure, gang. I'm so excited, being a television and radio host and journalist and broadcaster myself. This is really a delight when we get a chance to welcome somebody in the industry. We do a little shop talk, but we're going to welcome you guys. If you want to comment during the show, we welcome you to do that. It's my honor and pleasure to welcome the one and only Claudia Cagan to the Jim Masters Show Live. It's her return engagement. Claudia, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
That was so sweet.
And that's just the short list, right? That is the condensed list.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You really are on fire. And I just got to tell you what I was saying. I mentioned it to you off air before we went live. When I did mention that you were coming on the show, people were reaching out to me in a very beautiful and touching way. People I know in the industry and mutual friends, but also just random people that have worked with you who I haven't had a chance to meet yet as well. And they absolutely love you. You have made and continue to make your mark in this industry in so many different accomplished ways. And you do it, I know, from the heart and the soul. It's something that you absolutely love. You're very passionate about what you do. But it's the kind of thing when you hear from people in the industry saying she's $1 million, it's got to make you feel good because they are right.
Those are my blessings, Jim.
Right?
Those are my blessings. Yeah.
And you count them every single day, right? Every single day, especially in this tough, unpredictable, crazy, nutty, but fabulous business that we're in.
Always changing. But, my sister and I both learned how to live in this world from our mom.
Yes.
I'm going to try not to cry when I just think of her. She was a fabulous redhead and a creative soul. She was a pioneer on 7th Avenue. She was one of the first women to have a female-owned and operated manufacturing company, for which she was also the designer. It was called Ruth Manchester Limited. It's giving me the chills now just to tell you this. I know this for my whole life. But she was an extremely optimistic.
That's a cool shot.
I'm actually sitting next to her in that picture, but it's like somebody.
You are.
Out of it. Anyway, you have another picture. You should. Anyway, she just lived her life in an optimistic way because she had had such a sad depression childhood that she knew that she was going to give my sister and I the most extraordinary, that she used that word all the time, creative and fabulous childhood and life that she could possibly do there in the Bronx on 196th Street and Jerome Avenue.
What do you think
Good.
about that area. What was in the water for you and Melissa and for your family? And of course, your father, a fabulous musician as well. And what do you think it was in that household that inspired all of you to want to go into the arts and to entertain all of us in your various ways, shapes, and forms, Claudia?
Well, my dad was a classical musician. He played the bassoon, and he ultimately played in the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra. But before that, when I was tiny, he was on the road playing with the Dallas Symphony and with the Ballet Russe and New Orleans Symphony, playing the bassoon. And finally, he was actually, it's an interesting story. He was subbing for the bassoonist at the Met. And then that guy retired. He was retiring. So they asked Pop to audition. He had to audition, even though he was already playing. And the way they set up the audition was that you had to audition behind a screen so that the executives could not be, they couldn't be swayed by seeing, oh, that's David Manchester. He's already good. So he auditioned. And let me preface this by saying that Pop I went with him because I have a crazy memory. And I remember going with Pop to visit a friend of his that was working selling hi-fi equipment because he couldn't get a job as a musician. So when Pop decided to come off the road and try to make a living as a musician in the city, he went to visit his buddy at the hi-fi store just to talk about, well, maybe I should sell hi-fi equipment, which would have been a perfectly dreadful idea because my father was born to play the bassoon or any similar instrument. He was a genius musician and he was not a salesman, right? So he did the audition behind the screen and he got the job.
Wow.
And Melissa had just been born. And so their life was suddenly beautiful, more beautiful, because he had to go out on the road when I was tiny, and he came home when, and I'm older than Melissa, and she was born. We were living in a one-bedroom apartment, Mom and Pop and my grandmother and me, and then Melissa was born, and Mom had a crib in the bedroom, so there were three of us in the bedroom, and they slept on the Castro convertible, in the living room.
Yeah.
And then when he got the job, they were able to afford a 2-bedroom apartment on the first floor. You know how much the rent was?
How much?
$88 a month.
Those were the
last
days.
century. I'm not going to tell you what part of the century, but it was in the last century in a beautiful apartment building in the Bronx that was like a small village. We knew everybody. Oh, there we are. So you can see the light. You see how the light comes out of my mother's face?
Yeah.
That's her. That's the light that she brought everywhere she went. And my cousin Mila, who's watching in Washington, D.C., in Bethesda, Maryland.
Hey, Mila.
Hi, Mai. She took that picture in front of her folks' house in Bethesda because we were visiting. Melissa was already singing, and we were visiting my aunt and uncle and my cousins. And so Mila took that picture. And that's like the spirit of our family. That's the spirit of our family right there. And Pop, very handsome, always handsome. And Mom bought him that Gucci belt because Pop didn't really have that style.
Right.
But Mom wanted him to be fabulous, just like she wanted her life to be fabulous, which it was. It really was. And by that time, we were already living in Manhattan on 88th Street and Broadway. And we moved there because her sister lived in that building. Her sister lived in the building in the Bronx with my cousins. And then she got an apartment on 88th and Broadway with her family. And then some years later, when I was at the High School of Performing Arts, and by the way, that is a nice picture that you showed of Fiorello LaGuardia High School. Melissa and I went to the original building that is still there at 120 West 46th Street.
Wow.
But now it is the Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis school of international something,
Yeah.
hotels or something.
Have you been back? Have you visited it?
I went to a reunion a number of years ago. They put an elevator in the building.
Have
They
they
put in a
really?
proper cafeteria because, as I said, I was there in the mid-late last century, and the building was from 1895, and it had formerly housed some animals from the Ringling Brothers Circus. So that's a lot of history for that building. But we didn't have a gymnasium. They had dance studios on the top floor, and then they had music studios, and then we did acting. And Melissa and I were both in the drama department.
The trauma
if you will.
department,
And
yes.
yes, because I wanted to be an actress on Broadway. I wanted to be on Broadway because I started going to see musicals on Broadway. Pop played a musical when I was 2.5, and he did concerts then, and I saw those things. And
Who were the people that
I guess
you were
I
being
saw
inspired by, that you were seeing at that time,
the
performers and others?
great. I saw Ethel Merman and Gypsy. I saw Barbara Streisand. Oh, I was a huge Barbara Streisand fan. My girlfriend and I, we went to camp together. We were counselors in Westchester, and we discovered Barbara Streisand on TV. She was doing some TV, and I remember that she was on not Mike Douglas. Mike Wallace had a late night show, and
That's
she
right.
was
Yes.
Baby Sleeping Bee, and she started to sing, and she was chewing gum, and don't even think about how I remember this, because it's not on any YouTube thing. And he walked over to her, and he put his hand under her chin. You see it? She spit out, put the gum in his hand, and she continued to sing. And I went to see her in nightclubs at 16. I tricked my folks into going to see her. We were all together, and we're going to go out someplace after a charity event. And I tricked them, and I said, we should go to Basin Street East because Peggy Lee is singing there. And they thought that was a fabulous idea. But I didn't tell them that Barbara Streisand was the opening act. And so we saw her, and she had the page boy hairdo and the long sailor dress with the big collar. And she sang like nobody you've ever heard before. And then I saw her in I Can Give You Wholesale. And then I saw her in the first preview of Funny Girl. I sat in the last row of the Winter Garden Theater. And now my sister is playing Mrs. Bryce, which was played by Kay Medford in the original. Melissa saw it too. She was just tinier at the time. So it's kind of a crazy full circle. I helped her learn her lines, so going through the script and saying those words from Funny Girl and looking at a script from Funny Girl was like, this is not even real life right now.
That's incredible.
So that was extraordinary. So those were the people that I loved. All the Gwen Verdon. I saw Damn Yankees, and I saw King and I when I was tiny for a birthday event. And I'm the girl that went to Sardi's for my 9th birthday. Because that's what was appropriate. And the other kids in the building on 196th Street, we all played together. We played cards, and we played jacks, and we did running bases. But they thought that those Manchester girls were so curious because they have those fancy party dresses that their mothers get them hand painted. And they go to museums, and they go to the ballet, and they go to the opera with their dad. And it was just unusual. But, Mom's motto was never boring. And so we learned to love everything. We loved our friends in the Bronx. And then I loved my friends at EBB Junior High School. And then I loved my friends at Performing Arts, some of whom I'm still in touch with because of the wonder of the internet. I just correspond. My girlfriend My girlfriend Sarah Beth, she wrote to me that she saw the promo for this, and she's amazing. You know, I know her. We know each other since we're 13.
Sarah Beth,
So,
welcome.
um,
you,
so yeah, so
y-
so that was
your,
fun.
your first Broadway play that you went to, your father was playing in the pit?
He was.
Wow. How cool is that, huh?
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But you see, it didn't seem unusual to us.
Right.
Melissa often talks about that when she does her interviews over the years, because it was our life. We had a regular life. I went to Alexander's with my mother, and I went shopping for shoes on Fordham Road, and we went
Alexander's, yeah.
to Gorman's to have a hot dog, and we went to the zoo and all those things. But besides that, we were having these other life adventures that young people didn't have. And as a matter of fact, I always remember I went to Queens College, and um, I was sitting in the cafeteria. Well, first of all, when I went to Queens College, it was a real crazy thing because performing arts was tiny, 100 graduates, and there were 15,000 people at Queens College. And I'm sitting in this
Yeah.
giant cafeteria, and I'm talking to a girl from Queens, and I said, so do you, have you been to the theater and stuff? She goes, oh, we don't go to the city much. I said, oh, really? When do you go? Like, what's the occasion? Well, we go to see the Rockettes at Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
see. You don't go
that's,
to the museum or the theater? No, I've never done that. Here's a girl who's maybe 17 or 18 years old, and she only knows 50th Street and 6th Avenue.
yeah, right.
You know,
Where the
my Aunt
Christmas
Pearlie
tree is
played
and all
the
that.
violin in the orchestra at the Radio City Music Hall, 6 shows a day, because that's our life.
That was your life.
That was our
You
life.
did dancing and piano lessons too,
I
right? And
did.
you were even a child model on TV and
I was.
runways?
I was. On Saturday, Mom would take me first to a piano lesson. Jean Helmer was my wonderful piano teacher on Madison Avenue and 93rd Street. And then we would go to Charles Lowe School of the Dance. And this is what I did there for during the day. I took ballet, tap, acrobatics, and something called personality. And it's kind of a curious thing that
Personality.
there's actually a class for personality, but there was, and a couple of the boys that were in, because I remember these things because they were so important to me. In my tap class was David Winters, who became Baby John in West Side Story, which I saw sitting in the mezzanine at the Winter Garden when I was in junior high school with my friend Lisa. And then Patrick Addiardi was in that class, and he played the Prince Chula Longhorn in The King and I, which I also saw some years earlier. And there he was. So like to me, they're stars, and I'm just a little short Jewish girl from the Bronx, but I had the time of my life. And
Yes.
yes, and then one day somebody suggested that Mom have pictures taken, that maybe I could be a model, and we didn't know anything about it, So she took me to this photographer who turned out to be a world-renowned photographer, but then he was just taking pictures for a living. His name was Ormond Gilly, and he took some pictures, and we brought him to Conover Modeling Agency, which was pretty famous at the time. Harry Conover was the guy that owned it. And she said, oh, I think we could do something with this. And I had a wonderful time. I did TV commercials, and I did runway stuff, and I was on Kate Smith had a daytime talk show. And also there was a show called The Home Show with Arlene Francis and Hugh Downs, and I was on that often. I was just a tiny girl. And we had a really good time. Mom would come into the auditions with one picture in her bag, and there were these other children, the little blonde children with the little noses, and their mothers would have big envelopes of photographs. But we were just kind of having a good time. And when it was my turn and they would call me, Mom would look at me and she would say, Sparkle. And that was my cue to just be fabulous. And we had a good time, and I did all those things, and I have some tape of commercials that I did. And then when I was going into junior high school, Mom said, okay, that's enough. Now you have to go to school all the time. But it was fun at the time, because I remember in the 4th grade, I was on this commercial. I was going to be on this TV show that was already, it was like a commercial was going to run in the show. So the teacher stopped the class and said, okay, I'm going to go get the TV. I'm going to bring it in so we could watch Claudia Manchester on television. Fun as can be. But then, yes, then I went to junior high school, and then I started doing shows in junior high school. But in public school, in elementary school, I played class stand, in assembly, and I played God Bless America and Star Spangled Banner. That was my job, to play the piano and accompany all the kids in white blouses with blue ties. They don't do that anymore, I don't think. It was nice at the time. So I had a lot of fun, and then after PA was magnificent. It was magnificent. And what's interesting, Jim, how times changed. I've met a lot of people, and when I tell them that I went to the High School of Performing Arts, they say, "Oh, my mother wouldn't let me."
Wow, really?
There were a lot of parents like that. First of all, they wouldn't let them take trains to get there.
Right.
And they wouldn't let them go out of their neighborhood. And they didn't know what it meant when their kids said, I think I want to be an actor or a dancer or a clarinetist. That was like, no, you're going to be in your father's business, or you're going to be a teacher. And but my parents never said that. They just wanted us to be happy and live happy lives and do what we wanted to. As a matter of fact, when I got the acceptance postcard from the High School of Performing Arts that said that I could go there, I brought it to the dinner table, and I was so excited. And I showed it to my folks, and my father, who had struggled as a musician to make a living, and was still not really. He was at the Met, but he didn't make a big living. He said, "Are you sure you're not going to wait to see if you got into the Bronx High School of Science?" And I said, "No, Pop. I'm going to go to the High School of Performing Arts. It's like right out of fame. I'm going to live forever." That's exactly what I said to him. Nope, I'm going to go to the High School of Performing Arts. And that's what I did. And I met those friends, formed life. And I had experiences that I couldn't have had at Bronx High School of Science. Although I have friends who went there, and they're lovely people. They said, you made the right decision. So that was the beginning of my creative journey. But you see, it's so many stories.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Look at this photo.
That is the last day of taping of the brilliant original Arsenio Hall show. That's me. This is Pete Hammond, who is now a very estimable film savant and writer for Deadline. That's Mr. Arsenio Hall. This is my dear Joy Dolce. She and I were called the Comedy Mommies. Arsenio gave us the job of finding and booking comedians. And we were out almost every night at the Improv or the Laugh Factory or wherever. And quick story about that. He once said to us, I want you to go to New York and find me the best comedian in New York who nobody's heard of. So we went to New York. We saw 50 comedians in 2 nights, 2 different clubs. We went to Stand Up New York and Catch or Comic Strip Lab, one of those. And you know who we picked? We picked Dave Chappelle.
Wow.
Which nobody knew him.
Nobody
So Arsenio said, you think he's great? I said, we do think he's great. He's new. His material has never been heard before. And Arsenio put him on the show. And he was brilliant. And we went to black clubs and white clubs and parties. And we saw comedians everywhere. And people just took good care of us. And and we had the time of our lives. And the other person in that picture, I want to tell you, this is kind of interesting. You have that photo?
Yeah, we have it. Yeah. That's
I know you
cool.
do.
Great stories that
Yeah.
you're telling us here and sharing.
This lady, her name is Kate Crane. She's British. She was the last person to join our little posse. She brought a desktop computer to her desk, to her office.
To
We
the
did the
desk.
whole show with pencil and paper.
Yeah.
This was that was 1994.
So this was
We
like,
produced the whole show every night. The research department had piles of magazines, and they would tear out articles and put them in files. And she brought a computer, and I remember I would stand behind her like, what do you need it for? Like, what good does it do? What does it do that we can't do? And she said, well, if I want to write, if I want to write a script, I could just save it, and then I don't have to type it again. Like I said, I don't care. What difference does it make, right? But then, of course, so this was the last day of this show, and the following week, and Marla's not in that picture, but Marla Kell Brown was our beloved producer. She was 26 or 27 years old at the time. She called up a friend of hers who was producing Extra and said, I have a whole staff here that is suddenly out of work because our show is over. So you should really interview some of these people and
yes.
see if you can use them on Extra. And gratefully, Pete and I were hired. I was the 11th hire on that show. They built we called it the bunker. It's a big office building in Burbank with no windows. You couldn't see outside. It was like working in a Vegas casino. You never knew what time it was. There were a lot of quirks about it, but I was grateful. Oh, and I was grateful to have a job because I started at Our Magazine. The day that Our Magazine,
Gary Collins, yeah.
W said, go downstairs to another office and you're going to start on Couch Potatoes, hosted by Mark Summers, who was brand new as a host. And then when that was over, I went to another show, PM Magazine. And then I went to Totally Hidden Video because a friend of mine said you should go to work there. That was kind of dicey. After that, my friend called me and said, why don't you come and work with us on the Joan Rivers show? Well, I already loved Joan Rivers because guess what? Joan was our opening act at the Riviera Hotel when I was singing background with my sister. And she's always in my heart.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the 10th anniversary of her passing.
There's something they're planning at the Apollo.
Yes,
I
they
think.
are.
Yes,
Yes,
a
they
massive
are.
Joan Rivers
Melissa posted that yesterday or the
remembrance.
day before.
Yes.
Yeah. But Joan was, despite her brash appearance, every time I saw her, she always asked for my girls. She said, do you need earrings for the girls? I have earrings. And she was so kind because then so I went to work for her on her talk show. I was the only person in Los Angeles booking celebrities for her show that was shot in New York on 57th Street. So we did a lot of satellites and things like that. And it was kind of fun that I was nobody to holler at me. Like if somebody wanted to holler at me on the phone, I could just hold it over here.
Were you with her when she
I had
did
a good
the interview
time.
with Jessica Hahn? I remember seeing that one.
No, because that's the thing. You see, I wasn't in the studio. So I was just really booking and sending. And then sometimes, like I remember we did Roseanne and Tom Arnold at 4:30 in the morning on a satellite. There was a satellite studio in West LA that I did. And I did that for a while. I had interviewed for Arsenio's show, by the way, before they went on the air. And they didn't hire me because Arsenio had already promised jobs to people who were near and dear to him. And so anyway, life went on, and I love you. And I went to work at Joan's show after other things. And I came home from work one night and I see on the dining room table, there's a Post-it. And I look at it and I bring it into my husband did we live here yet? No, we lived in the condo that fell down. I said, do you know who this is? He said, I don't know. I said, that's the Arsenio Hall Show. So I called Marla back. I said, hi, it's Claudia again. And she said, do you want to come and have an interview with Arsenio this time? I said, oh, yes, I would really love that. So I went to Paramount, and I was sweating from the top of my head all over my body because I wanted that job more than anything, because I thought that the show was such a monstrous hit that I could have that job for the rest of my life. And I went into the conference room on the Paramount lot in the Gloria Swanson building, and Arsenio wore his sunglasses, and we talked. And he said, so I know that you're used to booking everything, but here, we have a lot of people working already, and my colleague is being promoted, so we have this position, but you'd only be booking TV with Joy Dolce. I said, I will empty the trash. And he hired me. They hired me. And what I noticed the first day that I went to work, they had a lot of suits. We call them the suits, the Paramount brass and the production people standing on the side of the stage. You would always see them if you watched Arsenio show.
Yeah.
They were all smiling because the show was a monster.
Yeah.
That had such extraordinary response and a new young audience. Very nice that Johnny Carson was doing his show in Burbank. I myself appeared on that show in the background when Melissa was a guest. My husband conducted that band, but because of the unions, we couldn't be on television. And there I was on the Arsenio Hall show with the booking staff. I just talked to my friend today. His license plate was Dub Boy because he made the dubs. You remember 3/4-inch tape? And
yes.
We made dubs. Yeah, that was his job right out of college. Well, today he's an executive producer on some of your favorite shows on television, and he was calling me because he had asked me a question. Because we never leave each other's lives.
No, right.
We never leave each other's lives.
No, you don't.
Because I think in those days also, there was a real opportunity to build a family when you put a staff together.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that the philosophy of production people nowadays is to change jobs, find a better job, find a better opportunity. Maybe you're not going to like that. Maybe you want to try something else. And, I do have a friend at Entertainment Tonight who's been there for 400 years because he loves working at ET. He has worked there since he worked in the tape vault right out of college. And that is his blessing to have that job. I find that with some, not all, but some younger folks graduating from college. And by the way, that's a big difference. When I went to Queens College, I was a drama theater major. That meant I acted in plays and I read plays. There was no broadcasting major. The closest thing was that there was a class that you could do the same play, same scene in a theater setting, in a TV setting, and in a film setting. We didn't have the equipment, but just something changed in the technique, right? But now I go to speak at USC to their PR classes. I've recently gone to Syracuse University class here in Hollywood. I hope to do that again in the spring. My friend Mitch Messenger, who's a wonderful publicist, and he is a professor there, and he's invited me. Those kids, they know how to produce a daytime or nighttime talk show, sitcom, 1 hour drama. They know how to do that. They get the tools to do that. I had to learn on the job. And by the way, if you want to know how this happened, I was doing something after I left the road because there was a change in philosophy of presentation. I, with my mother and a friend, opened a booth on Venice Beach and was selling. It was like a swap meet on the beach, selling clothes. That's like a whole other story. Anyway,
That's cool.
yeah, it was sort of cool. And then it turned into a business from the beach to a big manufacturing company, and Ruthie designing clothes again and selling all the stores around the country. And then a big giant department store that you know that may rhyme with Pacey canceled an order and put us out of business. And I was doing horrible odd jobs. And a friend of mine who is a producer, my friend Richard Crystal, he called me up. I called Stephen, my husband, to say, I think I'm going to blow my brains out if I keep working here. He said, no, don't blow your brains out. Richard said, you have to call this guy. You have a pencil? Write it down. You're going to call this guy tomorrow. He's starting a show and he needs to talk to you. I said, oh, well, that's ridiculous. Okay. So I call this guy. His name was Chris Peachin. We're still in touch. And he is starting a show called Photoplay, which was based, the title was bought by Alan Landsberg Productions, and that was a movie magazine. That's sort of like a gossip magazine about the private lives of movie stars and their kids and their hobbies and their vacations and all of that. And I went there for an interview. And because I said to Richard, when he told me, I said, I don't know anything about this. I can't do this. He said, that's exactly what you're not going to say. You will tell him about the life that you've led. You will tell him about the celebrities that have been in your house since you were a tiny girl, including now and how you just came off the road. And you have been on this journey. And what a perfect place for you to be in broadcasting. So I went and had an interview. And at the end of the interview, Chris said, okay, would you like to join our team? And I said, well, I have a few questions. He said, what is the questions? I said, well, how long will this job last? And he said, I don't know. It's TV, could be 13 weeks, could be 13 months, could be 30 years like Johnny Carson.
Could be one day. Yeah.
All of it. But I was in a situation where I just needed to have a job the next day, right? And my husband was a musician and a composer, and he wasn't really making much money at that time. And because two people have to work in this life. Yeah. And we have twin daughters.
You have twin daughters,
and,
right?
And I said, okay. And here's my second question. How much will it pay? And he said, $500. Well, I had just closed up my business, which I owned with my mom and my friend. And we were drawing $385 a week, because when you own a business, you have to put the money back in the business. And I thought, he's going to pay me $500 and I don't have to pay for somebody's health insurance, and I don't have to pay, I don't have to make sure that I can make a payroll. And I thought, this is unbelievable. So I said, well, I would love to take this job. So I took the job and I went to work, and this lovely situation in West LA. It's now a private school. The building is now a private school. And it was like segments, just like Entertainment Tonight. And there were a lot of people from Entertainment Tonight who went to work there because they had just gone through a change in bosses. And the second day I was there, I was sitting at my desk, and I thought to myself, this is not good. I am a fraud. I don't know anything about this language. I don't have an education that has prepared me for this. And I have to tell him that I can't do this. And then I took a breath and I thought, but I'm smart and I can learn this. It gives me the chills again all the time. And that's what I did. I just concentrated and I focused, and I watched what different people who were very experienced all around me, who had come from ET, who had come from broadcasting majors, because it was all those years later, that they were teaching this in colleges. And I learned it. And when I was there in that job, one woman who became a good friend, her name is Carol Prop. She was the talent executive. That's what her job was called. And she had big Rolodexes on her desk, huge Rolodexes. And she booked all the celebrities that we wrote the stories for. You know, Cars of the Stars, and Liberace has a new book, so we're going to go to Book Soup and do an interview with him, and all of that. And I thought, that's my job. I know how to take care of celebrities. I did that. I love them. I've grown up around them. I want to learn that. So I did one more job, which was the pilot for the home show with, so after Photoplay was over, my friend Rip calls me and he said, okay, so this show is going to be over in 2 weeks, but tomorrow you're going to go across the hall and Woody Frazier is starting a new show. It's a pilot and it's called The Home Show. And he wants to talk to you, wants to meet you. I said, okay. So tomorrow I go across the hall and I'm sitting there. We start to talk. And I said, you know, the weirdest thing, Woody, when I was a tiny little girl, I was actually on a show in New York City. They shot it on Amsterdam Avenue in the old ABC studio. And it was called, it's the funniest thing, it was called The Home Show. And he said, I bought that title. So, you know, there's no coincidences in the world. So I did the pilot, and that was a lot of fun. But they took a lot of time to sell it. And in the interim, I was hired to do Our Magazine, hosted by Gary Collins.
Gary Collins, yeah.
Great Gary Collins, a dear fellow. And we had a lot of fun. And I was
his wife's Marianne Mobley, right? His wife?
His wife was Marianne Mobley. That's correct. Their daughter is a big Hollywood executive. And I remember when he asked me if I could take her to lunch because she wants to be in showbiz. She was 15 years old in high school. Can you tell her something about what this is about? And now she's the boss.
Wow.
And so I went to work at Our Magazine, and we had, and Marty Berman, who I'm still in touch with, the executive producer, who knew how to put a staff together. He was kind of rejiggering the staff. And he hired me to be a talent coordinator. That was a big step for me, because that was like on my road to talentdom, you know? And me and my friend Carol Uchida, I bet she's watching. She lives in the Central Valley.
Hello, Carol.
Hi, Carol. I love you. And she and I worked with Karen Cadle, who may also be working, who booked all the legends on Our Magazine, because Our Magazine was in its 12th season when I joined it.
Wow.
And Karen booked Audrey Hepburn. She booked all the legends, and she booked Audrey, and Audrey was my idol. I cut school at Performing Arts to go to the music hall with Sarah Beth to see Breakfast at Tiffany's too many times to mention. And we met Audrey the day before just to welcome her and say hello and meet her. And I remember reaching out my hand and I said, Miss Hepburn, it's such an honor to meet you. And she said, please call me Audrey. Well, I don't know what to say about that. And she was just divine and charming, and she had great stories, and she was already sick. And a couple of months later, but she was wonderful. A couple of months later, she did a special evening at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, a fashion salute to Givenchy, who designed most of her gowns and dresses. And I took my mom. And we were up in a suite upstairs. And Audrey came upstairs to meet Mom. I have nothing else to say about that. But that's the joy of this journey, you know, moments like that, not to be duplicated and never forgotten.
But even moving to Los Angeles, wasn't there a lesson from Stephen's grandmother that brought you to LA?
Yes, thank you for remembering that. Yes. Stephen had worked in the music business. He did jingles, and he wrote Ford Has a Better Idea and a lot of stuff in the jingle business. And then the jingle business dried up.
I know.
And
I used to love jingles.
Huh?
Yeah, I used to love jingles.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And so he wound up going to work for my mom because we had the twin babies, and he had to make a living. And I didn't go back to work because I was working at mom's showroom. And when you have two babies in those times and no money, you don't have help. Just do it. And but then when the girls were in first grade, his grandma got sick. And I guess they had a conversation. And Stephen's message that he got from Dora was that you must have no regrets in your life. And so he decided that he needed to pursue his music. All of his colleagues and friends, and a lot of our friends, and my sister had moved to California because Midnight Blue became a hit, and she had to kind of change her life, and it was quite exciting. And one of the best conversations was he called a friend of his who's a very famous writer, composer, arranger, Artie Butler, who I'm going to see in his one-man show in a couple of weeks. He called Artie and said, I think I'm going to do this.
Wow.
What do you think?
Yeah.
And Artie said, you only have to answer one question. And Stephen said, what is that? And Artie said, what moving company shall I use? And so we moved to California, to Los Angeles. We came to LA, and we met a friend of ours, still a friend, and he showed us around his neighborhood to look at the nice apartment, nice places to live, and that was near Hancock Park on Mansfield between Highland and La Brea, a duplex. And we gave ourselves a week to find a place. And within the first 3 hours, we found this magnificent duplex apartment. And it was a lovely young family that was living upstairs who owned the apartment with two little boys. And we knew that we had a budget because in New York City on 88th Street and Broadway for 6 rooms, we were paying $299 a month.
Wow.
And so we had agreed that we were going to pay $400 a month to live in California. And Stephen said to the guy, how much is the rent? Because we really liked this place. It was like a private house, a huge 2,700 square foot. And he said, $450. And Stephen took my arm and he just squeezed it like, oh, we'll take it. Thank you very much. Because he didn't say anything like, oh, you said $400. So we spent the rest of the week just visiting with people because that was our place. And we we sold everything in our apartment on 88th Street down to the carpeting because we had no real money. So
Right.
we had a little bit of money, and we sold our wedding gifts and silverware and all that stuff. And then we moved to California. And when we moved there, Stephen's first job was doing the music for a pilot for Robert Klein called Klein Time on the Paramount lot. And it was a ensemble company, all sketches and skits. And one of the actors was a new young actor whose name he had to change because it was already the name of a famous actor. His name was Michael Douglas, and he changed it to Michael Keaton.
Wow.
So
that's right. Yes. Yes.
That was our first experience on a lot in Hollywood.
And now he's using Michael, is it Keaton Douglas?
He's going back to it. He's going to go back to Michael Douglas Keaton.
Douglas Keaton, right.
He can't be Michael Douglas because that's a union thing, but he's
right.
include it somehow.
That is
Yes,
absolutely
I know.
amazing.
I know. But I remember it as if it was
As if
yesterday.
it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Right?
And that was 1976.
We got so many cool photos. Look at this one.
Smokes.
Smokey Robinson, huh?
That was just a couple of years ago. That's on the lot at in Studio City, now called the Radford lot. And there's nobody like Smokey. There's just nobody like it. He's kind and gentle and geniusly talented, and
doesn't
all he
age.
wants to do is play golf.
Just wants to play golf.
Yes.
He seems like, I haven't had the pleasure yet, but he seems like one of the sweetest guys too.
He's very grateful. He's very grateful for his life.
Yeah.
And a true genius.
Absolutely.
Yes. There she is.
Audrey Hepburn, folks.
So if you can tell, I was like not breathing here, because
you weren't?
I couldn't believe that I was sitting next to Audrey Hepburn, and right next to her and touching her.
And what was she like? Very gracious, very elegant.
Well, here's a little story about this dress she was wearing. She was originally wearing a cream, that's like a knit two-piece elegant outfit for daytime, because it was a daytime show. She was wearing a cream color outfit. And I went over to my friend Karen and I said, Karen, I don't know about that color on television. I think it's going to wash her out, and I don't know. And I don't even know how we going to say something. It's Audrey Hepburn. Oh, that's when we met her upstairs. We met her at the reception first, and she was wearing the beige outfit. And so Karen spoke to her companion, and he said, just tell her she'll be fine. She wants to be whatever you need her to be. Whatever. And sure enough, she changed into this beautiful navy blue ensemble. But you can see how thin she was. And I don't know if she had announced yet that she was ill. She had cancer, you know. But she was just divine. I think that she had already made her trips to Africa to work with the children there. And she had wonderful stories. And I personally grew up wishing I could be her. My mom used to tell me that I looked like her. So, you know, that was enough for me. It's not really true, but it's sort of brown hair and this, whatever. But just to breathe her air was quite enough for me. And I think, as I say, I think that she was really the first huge star and icon and idol that I ever had the chance to work with. And that's Hollywood Squares on Blondes Have More Fun Day. Miss Carol Channing, who I saw in Hello, Dolly on Broadway. Mm-hmm. And that's her husband, Harry. And she was just divine. She was just divine.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah. Geniusly talented. If you would have seen her in Hello, Dolly.
Oh, yeah.
She owned the stage. And by the way, I saw Bet do it, you know, a couple of years ago. And Bet was brilliant in her Bet way. And, you know, I know Bet a long time because Melissa created the Harlettes. Did you know that?
And yes,
she was one of the original Harlettes because
that's right.
She created them. Yeah. So
and guess what?
What?
She loves you. She's watching. There she is. Very proud of you. Sister dear, Melissa Manchester. You know, now Melissa is, and she loves this. And I think when we were emailing, I mentioned this. I had said in the early part of the show that the show has light, love, and levity. You know, we were in the pandemic and everybody was needing that. So I said, light, love, levity. One time, probably a New York thing, said it too fast. And I said, yeah, and our show has a lot of light levity. Somehow I combined love and levity together.
Nice.
And the audience jumped on it. The audience said, okay, guess what? This is what we're doing. You're now Mr. Levity. This is Levity Hall. We're your Levity squad. The guests are part of the Levity family. So your Levity sister, Melissa, has been on the show several times, and we've had absolutely spectacular conversations with her. And she absolutely loved the whole levity thing.
Yeah.
And I said, my God, it's just something that slipped out of my mouth. So she's a lovety, and Claudia, you are officially a lovety as well on the Jim Masters Show.
I'm
How cool
honored.
is that?
I'm honored.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you, Melissa, taking time. She's enjoying some downtime right now, right?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
she's been on tour and on the road and doing some really fabulous things. And as I had mentioned, we saw her at the Katharine Hepburn Performing Arts Center. And let me tell you, she just, everybody, they couldn't get enough of her. The
No.
claps, the standing ovations, just
You know
really.
that this is Melissa's 50th year
Yes.
as a performer.
Hard to believe.
Her 25th album is out now, and she has a duet with Dolly Parton on Midnight Blue that is not to be missed.
Yes.
And she actually sings Whenever I Call You Friend with Kenny Loggins, with whom she wrote that song. Everybody got that wrong. Everybody thought that Stevie Nicks wrote it because she sang it with Kenny. No. Melissa and Kenny wrote that song all those years ago, and it took all this time for the circle to be unbroken and for Melissa and Kenny to do the definitive version of that duet. And it's simply wonderful, and and it's called Review. The album is called
Fabulous.
Review because she has revisited her hits over the years, excuse me, and sort of they're all recognizable. It's not like she changed things and all of that, but she just kind of lifted them up to the modern century.
Yeah,
so she's having a wonderful time with that, but it's a completely different, like she says to me, I have to put on a different coat when I'm Melissa Manchester as to when I'm, Mrs. Bryce. That's a different coat. And by the way, Mrs. Bryce is an amalgam of our aunts Marcy, Tessie, and Helen, our father's sisters, because they talk like this, because they were true Bronx girls, and they would call us darling girl. So we call each other sister dear.
That is fantastic.
Yes.
How do you describe your fabulous relationship with your wonderful sister?
Oh, that's a funny picture.
I love this shot. This is actually Melissa.
It is.
It's a beautiful shot. It's the two of you. It's a real sister shot, and it's gorgeous.
Yes. Well, I think that it's a little bit indescribable. She lives right down the block.
Right.
My daughters live down the block this way.
Everything is down the block.
We're all around the corner. My kids live down the block the other way, and her kids, her son lives in Burbank, which is not that far away. Her daughter just moved that way, about 15 minutes away. We can't be that far from each other. We always try to be here for each other, good times and bad times. And you can't get through life without good times and bad times, but somehow you get through it and you learn from the experience. But at the end of the day, we're always here. And she's my girl, and I'm grateful to have her in my life, and I think she feels the same way. My daughters still call her Aunt Mel, and they're grown-up women, and she's Aunt Mel to them, and never anything else. They would never call her anything else because they grew up with her. She was a young girl when my girls were born. So, because I had my girls when I was 9 in India. Yes, Melissa, in a beautiful outfit. I'm going to show you something.
I think that was her birthday too.
I'm just going to come out of frame for a second because
absolutely, yes. We've had a lot of guests where we see the celebrity's chair.
Beauty. Look at this. Wait.
Let's take a look at that. We'll make it a full screen. 3, 2, 1.
Look at that. That's me and Mom and Melissa. Melissa was getting an honor at the Beverly Hills Hotel. And you see the joy in those girls. We just wanted to be together all the time. And we learned from each other. I was already working in TV by that time. And I think, and Mom always looked glamorous, always. She never went out of the house without makeup on because she didn't have any. She was a natural redhead to begin with, so she didn't really have any eyebrows and eyelashes. But a friend of hers who was a showgirl on Broadway taught her how to do makeup. But she always looked like $1 million, $1 million. That's Ruby.
I bet incredibly proud, the family proud of both of you, right?
Oh yes.
The love that
yes.
the foundation, we've had the same thing in my family, the foundation of support and love from our parents, our aunts and uncles, all of our relatives, which still remains very strong and very important today. I mean, my father's side, New York, my mother's side, New England, Connecticut, Massachusetts. My mother's the youngest of 16. A huge family. And just it really starts at the home, and you had the love and support and fun and caring early on that you both in your respective roles share with the world. You get a chance to work in industries that provide joy and entertainment, get us to think and feel. And that started early on from what you absorbed as that little girl running around the house. And
I had no plans. Remember,
there was no plan.
I wanted to be. I went to PA, and then I was hoping that I would get into a Broadway show, and I auditioned for a couple of shows which are memorable to me, but I didn't get to come back. And then I met my husband, became my husband, and then we got married, and I was 12 years old, not really, and so my life changed. But Melissa was a singing special girl since I can remember she was 2 years old, and we were at Grandma and Grandpa's apartment on University Avenue, and she was sitting in the middle of the floor like this. Maybe she couldn't walk, I don't know. And she was singing Getting to Know You, or
Getting to
something
know
from
you.
P&I.
Yeah.
Because we only heard show tunes and Ella Fitzgerald and Frank Sinatra in our house. I missed Elvis Presley because we were still singing show tunes. I finally got in touch with the Beatles in my life. And quick story, we went to the beach one day, and one of the girls that went to the beach, her mother was their travel agent, and we came home from the beach all sweaty and burned, and the phone rings, and it was her mother, and she said, "I have tickets for the Beatles at Forest Hill Stadium. Do you want to go tonight?" What? So we took showers quickly, and we were 4 of us, I think, and 5 of us, and we took a cab to the Delmonico Hotel, and just like in all the magazines, we get down to Park Avenue at the Delmonico, which is now the Regency. Lines of girls screaming, "Ringo, Paul, Ringo, I love you, John." And I go I get out of the cab, and I go to the front desk, and I say, "Excuse me, do you have a package for Claudia Manchester?" And the woman said, "Yes, I do." And in it were tickets for the Beatles. So we went to see the Beatles. That's my Beatles story. Thank you very much.
How cool is that?
So then I liked the Beatles, but I still went to the theater. I didn't really know the rock and roll too much, and the kind of music that Melissa was singing had nothing to do with rock and roll. It was closer to Ella Fitzgerald and standards. It was a new kind of music. It was a new kind of pop music in the 70s that she was performing, and Barry Manilow was performing, and Carole King and Linda Ronstadt, and thank goodness.
Yes, absolutely right. Look at this.
More Hollywood Squares, friends. Well, this is a good picture. You know why? Because Henry Winkler and I both grew up on the Upper West Side of Manhattan.
That's right.
And somebody actually fixed us up on a blind date once.
Did they really? I didn't know that. Wow.
When I was 16, we went on a blind date. Henry and I laugh about it now because we're besties. And I remember that we went on a bus, And I think we went to the movies or we went to a concert in Central Park, but then he never called me again. But I was used to that because I didn't have much of a social life with boys because I was just that short girl from the Bronx, and I wasn't like a social girl anyway. And Betty White, what can we say? Top of the line. But that was a Hollywood Squares day, and Henry loved Betty more than breathing, and I was just happy to be in that shot with them.
It really is wonderful.
Yes, indeed.
Here's
And
another.
that was another show that I did. That was after Extra. Was that after? Oh, no, that was after my first run. I was at Entertainment Tonight before, you know. I was at Entertainment Tonight in the late 90s. And I had a really good time, a lot of good friends, a lot of best friends. And then I was invited to join the Martin Short Show.
Yeah.
And work with the great Bernie Brillstein, now gone, but a giant. And we had fun together, Bernie and I, because I knew he liked to tell a lot of stories about old Hollywood and comedians, and nobody else in the room knew who they were except me. So he enjoyed that. And Marty Martin is a joy and a genius. And that's Stuart Krasnow. And interestingly enough, Stuart Krasnow is now teaching a class, I think at Cal State and at LA, on game shows. And when the kids graduate, they will know how to make a game show. Bob Bowden.
He was on last night. He was our guest.
He talked about it, right?
Yes, he did. Yes.
And that's Stuart Krasnow, who is teaching the class. Small world.
Is this not a small world or what, huh?
Yes.
Is this not a small world or what?
Yes.
Absolutely. On
But
so many different.
there's a case where you don't know what happens in television. So I did that show with Marty Short, and it lasted one season. We had the greatest stars. We had Tom Hanks. We had Steve Martin. We had Goldie. We had all the biggest Spielberg, all the biggest stars. And at the end of the run, I said to one of the suits, I said, "Is there anything we could have done differently?" And he said, "Not a thing." It was just not a good match for daytime. But we worked hard and we had a lot of fun. And now Marty's having a great other act. I don't know what act this is, but Only Murders in the Building with Steve Martin and Selena and the rest of those glorious guest stars is masterpiece.
Have you ever, I mean, you're supervising producer, Entertainment Tonight, and you've
By the way, there are many. I'm only one of many supervisors.
One of many, right? It takes a village, absolutely, to put these things together. And we have more to show, but you have there's a personality. You just have, I love listening to you, and I love the expressions and the inflection, and I don't know, that could be a New York thing because people say I do the same thing, but I can relate to it. I plug into it. Have you ever thought of being in front of the camera, being, acting on a sitcom or anything? I'm sure you've been approached over the years with everybody around you there in Hollywood to have you in front because you're funny and you're expressive.
You want to give me a job?
I was going to say.
No, actually, here's the thing.
You can co-host with me. There you go.
Anytime. I can do that anytime.
I know you could.
My mom used to ask me, like, why aren't you the head of a studio? Why aren't you have an important job? I said, Mom, first of all, I have an important job. All of these TV jobs are important. I said, but I have to make a living, and I can't take a risk in those executive suites where you might have a job for 2 years, and then if something happens with the roster of shows or all of those things, then you have to start all over again, and you might be out of work for 5-10 years, some of my buddies. So I was just grateful. I've always been grateful to have work. I never even thought of myself as a freelancer until I got to E-News, and I actually had a sit-down job. Well, I did at Arsenio. That lasted for 5 years, so that was decent and wonderful. But at E-News, where I was there for 8 years and only left because Arsenio decided to come back and do a kind of a reboot, and he made me a lovely offer, which I resisted for a while, not to show off at all, but I just thought, I have a job, I don't need another job, and I wish, I thought, I don't know, maybe it'll be good, I don't know, and then he urged me to join him, along with only one or two other originals, and then I thought to myself, once again, I don't want to have regrets. If they were doing the show in Cincinnati or Cleveland or New York, I could say, I don't live there, and God bless, and I'm sure it's going to be great, and I'm going to watch every night. But they're doing the show on the KTLA lot, and it's Arsenio, and I believed that it was going to be a good group of people, and I certainly hoped that it would be. And who's to say why it didn't succeed more than one season? They gave us 2 seasons. They picked us up for a second season halfway through, and Jay Leno came out on the stage and read the proclamation that you're going to get a second season, and we were all excited, and some people made wedding plans, and some people bought new houses, and stuff happened, and then television is quirky, and then they didn't, and Arsenio was disappointed, I was disappointed, we were all disappointed. But then you move on.
Right.
Then you just move on. And then I entered the wonderful world of freelancing.
Yeah.
Because after Arsenio was over, I thought, am I going to Nordstrom's to sell shoes now? Because I was already, shall we say, a certain age, and I can't compete with 28-year-old kids doing this. But yes, I can. And but I mentioned to a friend who was freelancing, and I said, I don't know what there is, but if you hear of any jobs or shows that just need a booker, just let me know. Well, for 2-3 years, I learned how to work from home. Imagine that. A whole new idea, work from home. I did all these shows where I never even met a boss. I would do interviews over the phone, and then they would say, okay, can you start on Monday? And then they would get my information, payment information, and somehow a check would appear in my bank account on Fridays or every other Friday. And I had a perfectly wonderful time. I did this one show called Tanked, which is still on Animal Planet, where
I remember.
we put fish tanks in people's houses, Howie Mandel's office, and had a great time with that. Nice people. Nancy Glass's company is the producer.
Glass,
I worked with Nancy Glass at PM Magazine in the last century. So,
and didn't she do a show? Was it called American Journal or something? Didn't she?
She did.
That?
She's a wonderful girl.
Yeah.
Philly girl. You should have her on sometime.
Love to. Yeah.
And then, so I was doing all these different random shows, freelancing, and then a friend of mine went to work at ET 2016, and I bumped into him, and he said, we're going to work together one of these days. I said, don't dare me, you let me know. And one day he calls and he said, well, somebody took sick on the staff at ET, and we'd like to know if you could come in for like 4 to 6 weeks while she's getting better. And I said, well, I have these other jobs, so if it's okay with you, I can do it. I'll be happy to do it. And they said, well, I don't care about the other jobs. They're not competitive jobs, are they? I said, no, they're not. They're like specials and different series, but they have nothing to do with entertainment news, etc. And and they wanted, the reason why they liked me to do it is because I could just sit down. I didn't have to learn the system much, and I knew the people, and it was wonderful to just be there with old friends and new friends. And so it was a very warm welcome and familiar. But then her condition was a little more serious than predicted. And I started working there. I came there in August of 2016. And then she tried to come back, but she really wasn't able to stay at the office a whole day. And ultimately, they asked me to stay in 2017. And here I am with, along with a wonderful staff. We've gotten, I got 7 Emmys, 7 daytime Emmys in the last 8 years. I never got an Emmy before. I think that was my first one. It was an unbelievable moment, you know, because I worked all those years, 30-some years. And a couple of times I got nominated. I think I got nominated. I think Marty's show got nominated. But I don't think anything else. Maybe Hollywood Squares. I'm not sure. But I never got close enough to having an actual bronze statuette. And now I have them. I have a couple of them here.
You have a beautiful bureau there with photos, and
First
it's
of all,
just
here,
unbelievable.
One of my faves. Can you see who's in that? That's me and Brad Pitt. Yep, it's me and Brad Pitt. I was talking to him because he had just talked about that he'd rather be dancing than going to an award show. So I stopped him on his way off of our platform and I said, "So you really want to be dancing?" And he said, "Yes, I do." And that's Brad. And here is another girl you might know. That is Lady Gaga. There I am in the background over there. You see me?
We see you.
With the brown hair. That's me. Where am I? I can't tell. Right there. That's me. And that the blonde is my friend Rachel Stern. She might be watching. I share an office with her. And
hello, Rachel. It's like a family affair.
And this is a classic celebrity that I love. These are my buddies. This is Melissa made dinner at her place, and this is the brilliant Billy Stritch over here. Where is he?
Billy Stritch.
Yeah, Billy Stritch is a brilliant accompanist pianist. Melissa, me. That is Jim Caruso, who is brilliant, and he does Cast Party every Monday night at Birdland in New York. And on the end is our dear George Chakiris, who won an Oscar for West Side Story.
That's right. We had George on the show. George was here. Billy was here, and Billy was accompanying Melissa when she was touring around and when she was at the Cates.
He does play for her. And this one I found. This is Mr. Seinfeld. I'm on the bottom. I'm looking up at the. You see, I'm looking up. That's Debbie Matenopoulos with Jerry Seinfeld. And Jerry Seinfeld's story. One of the first jobs I ever did. When I was at Our Magazine, I didn't realize that over the summer break, you don't get paid. That wasn't good for me. So I had to find a job to do that I would get some money over the break. And I got a job booking the Sports Emmy Awards, which was taking place in New York City, I think at the Sheraton or the Americana, one of those hotels. And they needed me to book a comedian for them. They had the Flying Thunderbirds or something, Fabulous Thunderbird musical group and some others. And so I was I was new at this, but I knew a couple of people. And one of the comedy managers that I was talking to was a guy named George Shapiro, who is forever in my life. He's gone now, but he's always in my life. And he was trying to get me to book his young client, Jerry Seinfeld. He's fabulous. He's going to be great. You will love him. I said, I can't sell him to these producers. They never heard of him. He said, well, keep trying. Keep trying. And I had about 2 weeks to do this. And finally, there were no comedians that were available who were going to work for this short money. And finally, they said, all right, Jerry Seinfeld. So, and I went to New York for the event. And I can picture Jerry sitting at, one of those movable makeup tables on wheels in the middle of a ballroom. He's sitting there and he's combing his hair, and he got $5,000 to be on this television special as Jerry Seinfeld, the comedian. And George was so grateful to me that I put him on television. And Georgie and I, he just passed away a couple of years ago. And, but we always used to sign our messages to each other. I'm Claudia from the Bronx, and he's Georgie from the Bronx, and he grew up basically around the corner from Melissa and I in New York, and George did a documentary called The Bronx, and Melissa and I were in it telling our stories of our neighborhood. So that's my Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry doesn't remember that, and it doesn't matter, but for me, it's important.
That's a beautiful bureau you have there.
Thank you. Thank you. It is.
It is.
You know why I have it? Because a lot of the places that you go, where you live here, like especially the older places, the stuff, the drawers are built in, and so you didn't need furniture. So finally, I did need furniture, so that's an antique. You had a picture of me and Joan Collins?
Yes.
90 in that picture. She's 90 in that picture.
Incredible.
She had a new book out, and she came to our studio to do an interview. Charming.
Yeah.
Perfectly lovely and charming and delightful, and a very long, prosperous career. And she's just leaving Saint-Tropez because that's where she spends the summer.
But of course, darling. Yeah. That's a fantastic shot. I love it. Here's another one.
Girls.
Yeah, these are the real stars in your life, right?
They are.
Yes.
They are. That's Amanda.
And
that's Emily. And I believe that in this picture, we were at my nephew. We were going to my nephew Nathan's wedding.
These are your daughters, your lovely daughters. Yes.
But yes, so they're.
Are they in the industry?
They are, in fact. Amanda, she is the proprietor of ABC PR. Those are her initials, and she is an indie publicist. She has had this business for 22 years. And she does this work all by herself. She has an office in their house, in their home, and she goes into her office at 9 o'clock in the morning, or maybe 9:30, and she closes the door and she does her work until it's lunchtime, and then she goes back after lunch and she does more work. And Emily had a long career in the music business in marketing. She was director of marketing, and she worked at Universal and Warner Brothers and Rhino, and then stuff changed in the business, and she did a whole bunch of other things, and now she is an independent consultant in marketing for labels. Plus, she has gotten into the family business, and she is a talent booker and producer for podcasts, and she loves it, and she's good at it, because she saw me do it all those years, and it's not rocket science.
Did you say a talent booker for?
Yeah, podcasts. Yeah.
Fuel up the jet. We're flying west.
Oh yeah. So so they're and we go to the theater together, and we go for sushi together, and we take each other on trips, and we go to Vegas when we can.
So great. That's so wonderful. Mm-hmm. That's really beautiful. Yes. There's another shot of you guys. Yes.
We were at a wonderful tribute. We were at a wonderful party for George Chakiris, actually, that night. He's an old friend of ours. What we love about George Chakiris is that our dear friend Philip, he was a good friend of his, and he used to call him George Shapiro. So he's always George Shapiro. Yes.
The incomparable Barbara Eden. We were at an event. You mentioned Providence. We were at an event last year in Providence, and there was a 3.5 hour wait that people stood in to see her. She was the very last person in that entire major convention center. The security people were like, everybody, we're closing, we're done, our shifts are done, we're union, we got to go, da, da, da. She stood there, and
until
hundreds of people, a sweetheart of a person. Yeah.
Oh, she's darling. She's darling. She told great stories, and she was one of our, I called the series The Greats. Small G, small R, capital E, small A, capital T, small S. So you see greats with E-T. And she did tell great stories. Plus, she brought in a genie costume and a bottle. So
if you look closely, ever the producer that you are, There
I
is.
saw that. I saw in
You're
your
good.
little illustration at the top.
You are good. See, that's why she does what she does. That's the genie bottle. Yeah, that was given as a gift by a friend who was when they had the limited run of hand painted ones in the very beginning.
Yes.
And that's just that's a real treasure.
It is a treasure.
Look at this shot. Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, this is cool.
Yeah.
What's happening there?
Golden Globes, and she was being escorted. I think that was one of her boyfriends, if I remember correctly. But you know, I like these people. I'm not afraid of them. I don't, you know, I just want to help them. She's wearing a huge ball gown, and she has to maneuver downstairs. And
is that at the Met or something?
No, that was at the Golden Globes. I think.
Oh, the Golden Globes, yeah.
And she couldn't have been more charming. And you know what? She's just a New York Italian.
She
girl.
is, right. When she did that whole duet situation, which became a PBS special, what a phenomenal thing for her and for Tony Bennett.
Yeah. That
was really quite special. And they developed a phenomenal friendship as a result of that.
She added years to his life.
She added years to his life, which sometimes, is what happens. Oh, wow. Yeah.
That was a fabulous day. Now, here's a good story. Do you have time for a story?
Put an extra pot of coffee on, please. Claudia's with us. Yes.
So that's my friend Liza Minnelli. That's her sister Lorna, who is delicious and fabulous, and I love her. When I went to the High School of Performing Arts, and you remember that I know all these showbiz stories,
yes.
I saw Judy Garland perform. I was already a big fan and a devotee of Judy Garland. My sister and I knew every note of Judy at Carnegie Hall album. Every note.
Wow.
Fast forward, I think I was a junior at the High School of Performing Arts. And I'm coming out of my homeroom class on the 3rd floor of the building. And I see Liza Minnelli down the hall. I'm like, oh my God, Liza Minnelli is in this building. I need to know her. And my cousin went to PA as well. And you know, just like in Fame, the movie, we had 40 minutes. We had, I think 40 minutes for lunch, 20 minutes to eat, and 20 minutes to dance, or 30 minutes, something like that. And I met Jill downstairs at lunch. I said, I saw Liza Minnelli. She's in this building, and we need to be her friend. So
you were already a producer then.
I was a stalker. I was a stalker. And maybe she was there in the basement having a sandwich or dancing with the other kids. And if you watch Fame, it was really like that. It was really like that. We were all blessed to be there. And it was a magical place. And yes, we did dance at lunchtime. And yes, all of those things happened. We didn't dance in the middle of 46th Street, but we did dance in the building because we didn't have a gym. We just had dancing. So somehow I managed to find her. And I invited her to join us. We used to go to this coffee shop on 46th Street after school and have a Coca-Cola and French fries and smoke cigarettes. Because, you know, when you're 15, in the whatever year that was, that's what we did. And I invited her to come along. She thought that was fabulous. So she came along every day, a bunch of days. And one day I said, well, where do you live? Because I'm going to take a taxi home because I lived on 88th and Broadway. She said, oh, we live at the Dakota. Now, if you know New York, you know that's pretty much everything. Dakota later on is sadly known as the place where John Lennon was shot. But in those days, it was just fabulous. And Lauren Bacall lived there, and Rosemary's Baby took place there. And it was just this magical, mystical place. I didn't know anybody that lived there. But Liza said, oh, we have an apartment at the Dakota, me and Mama and Lorna and Joey, but it's a huge apartment and we really only stay in half of it. So I said, wow, that must be interesting. She said, well, yeah, but you know, here's the thing. Mama likes to sing in the shower. She actually said this to me. I swear to God. She said, Mama likes to sing in the shower. And the neighbor said, can you cut it down, please? It's too noisy. Can you sing more quietly? So I said, Liza, bring your mother over to our place and she can shower in the bathroom and sing anytime she likes. So, so that was fabulous. And then she only stayed at PA for the rest of that year, and then they moved to Scarsdale. And then she got into theater, and she did Best Foot Forward. And then she did Flora the Red Menace. And by the way, I auditioned for the chorus in Flora the Red Menace, and I got to sing my 8 bars, and I heard, thank you, next. But it was a great experience because I did that audition at the Schubert Theater, and so that was a memory. And then we saw her a couple of times. Melissa crossed paths with her and with Lorna, and we went to see them at the St. Regis. I think it was Lorna. We saw Lorna there. Lorna's a fabulous entertainer, by the way, and a wonderful actor.
Absolutely, yeah.
And a fabulous girl. I love her. And then a couple of years later, she did they were doing a fundraiser for her to honor her, this charity. And Melissa entertained and she sang, and I told my Liza Minnelli story. She didn't remember any of it. But that doesn't matter because it was a long time ago, but she thought it was entertaining. And then fast forward to Entertainment Tonight, and I spoke to her publicist about the fact that there was this fragrance coming out, Judy Garland fragrance, and how I would love to do an interview with the girls to talk about their mother and somehow figure out a way to include the Judy Garland fragrance. And so we did it at her home, and she was lovely. And you know me, when I'm in the room with those wonderful people, it's hard for me to breathe because the fact that they know who I am and that I know them and that it's delicious. That's her piano. Michael Feinstein was standing over here someplace. We're all buddies too. Michael Feinstein sang at my father's 65th birthday because I saw him sing at the Mondrian when he was in the piano bar. And so he was great already, but nobody really knew him, not even Liza yet. And my sister and I stuffed $200 in his hands so that to pay him for singing all night for Pop's party, and we sang together and we had a good time. And we're friends ever since. And so Liza brought, Michael was there to make sure that everything was Jake, and Liza was just delicious, and Lorna is a wonderful sister. And now Liza is doing a memoir, you know.
That's
and
right.
I'm with her wonderful team, and we're trying to figure out something great to do. It's not coming out until 2026, and
it's going to be cool. Yeah,
I hope so. I know that she's already recorded a lot of stories. So
yeah.
It's going to be great because it's her memories.
That's going to be amazing.
People talking about her.
That's going to be great. We're going to look forward to that, huh?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
that is the press night for the reboot of the Arsenio Hall show. I was extremely happy to be there. I was extremely grateful for that opportunity. And Arsenio is a one-of-a-kind person, kind man, hardworking guy, and grateful. And I'm sorry that this didn't work out.
But boy, when you were with him the first time, boom, huh?
Uh-huh.
That story. Tell us about
that moment. That moment took quite a while to come true.
Yeah.
We had this idea that we would invite Governor Clinton on the show because he was running for office, and he seemed to be the young people's president, right? And so I was in touch with his team, George Stephanopoulos, and what was her name with a D, who became a press secretary. I'll think of her name. all those people in Arkansas, and I was speaking with them regularly. Maybe we can do it. And could we do it Tuesday? Could we do it in the next month? Can we do it? And it was always difficult. And then one day I got a call and said, how about Monday? Because the governor is going to be in the area and he can come and do the show. So I run downstairs to Arsenio and Marla, and I said, Governor Clinton is going to come on the show, and it's going to be so fabulous. And they have the whole press team. They're going to come on a school bus onto the Paramount lot, and it'll be fabulous. And they were like all excited. So I go back up to my office, the phone rings again, and it's the same press guy. And he said, the governor has this idea. Would it be okay if he plays the saxophone with the posse? And I said, well, that's an interesting idea. Let me go and talk to them because, I'm not the final arbiter. I have to make sure it's okay with Arsenio and our executive. Just give me a minute and I'll come right back. And I went downstairs and I said, he wants to play with the posse. And they said, let him. So I called him back. And what we had to arrange was that the governor traveled with his mouthpiece, but we had to rent the instrument for him. And we determined what he wanted to play, which was God Bless the Child and Heartbreak Hotel. So Michael Wolf, our musical director, had copies made so he would have music to read. And this was a wonderful day, And he came early for the sound check, the governor, and his posse, his team, and they rehearsed. He was not wearing this schmancy tie. He was wearing a rather dull rep tie, just a striped tie. And I was sitting up in the audience with one of his people, and the guy said, "What do you think about that tie?" I said, "Well, probably could be better." He said,
what a great answer.
He
Very
said,
diplomatic. And, yeah.
Can you get him a better tie? And I said, I have a feeling that I can. So I went to Sandy, our brilliant costumer, who got Arsenio all of those spectacular leather jackets and his suits and made him look like $1 million every single day. And I told her what the order of the day was.
And you knew how to pick out the tie because your mother took you to Alexander's when you were a kid. It's all full circle.
That was one of the best days of my life when I was 11, and my mom said I could walk there by myself.
You took notes
all day in Alexander's trying on shoes in the basement. Thank you.
and it turns out it results in this.
So here we are. Here we are. And I said to Sandy, put some ties together and let's have them ready before he's ready to go out. And it's about a half hour to showtime. Mm. And Sandy comes out and she has a box, like a jewelry box with velvet lining with about 6 ties, very beautiful, maybe Versace, I don't know, maybe Armani ties. I bring them to the governor's dressing room, knock on the door. Hello, here's some ties for his selection. And he selected that tie. He did the show. It was brilliant. People went crazy. And after the show, one of his people came over to me and he said, I have a question. I said, what is it? He said, the governor wants to know if he can keep the tie. So I asked Sandy, and she said, he may have them all. Well, they were so blown away by the generosity of the Arsenio Hall staff. Bill Clinton is wearing one of our ties. Hello. And it was just a spectacular day. And
Yeah.
a couple of months later, my husband and I were on vacation at the what's the hotel in Coronado, the Dell. We were at the
Oh,
Dell.
yeah.
And who is there but Governor Clinton and his team? And they have like balconies like this. And I'm looking over the balcony, and the governor was sequestered someplace, but I saw one of his guys, and I'm like, Alfonso, it's Claudia from Arsenio. And he was like, oh my God, it's so good to see you. So that was a moment. And it always comes up. That picture of Arsenio with Bill Clinton, and I have letters that Bill sent to me both times in thanks that are treasures of mine. And it's a moment that is, you know, it's just ours.
You sent us a little clip. We'll play a little bit of it, and to show people, if they don't remember, that very special event. That was an event. That was a television event.
Totally.
On the Arsenio Hall Show. This is then Governor Bill Clinton playing the sax with Arsenio. Take a look at this.
Tonight, Arsenio welcomes presidential candidate Governor Bill Clinton and actress Terry Garr. And now, Rolling Hills, Honolulu, Louisville, and all the rest of y'all, here's Arsenio!
Now, were you standing right on the side?
Were all Bill, huh?
Were you standing like right there, you know,
on the
behind
side
the wall?
You see us on the side of the stage.
You were right there.
Side. Yeah, and the bop glasses were Bill's idea.
Oh my God, that's so cool! Wow,
it's quite something, right?
I know it's one of the highlights of, I mean, of all these amazing things you've done. That I know that's something near and dear to your heart that really stands out, and that's quite epic. And a matter of fact, I believe something followed that very special evening.
Yes. Yes. What I especially love about this letter is not just this part, but that he wrote an extra note of thanks with his signature, just Bill here. But that was quite extraordinary that he said that his visit was pivotal in the campaign. Your show allowed me to reach an important audience, and I will always be grateful for that opportunity. Thank you very much for your help, your support, and your prayers. And I believe that he meant that because he was elected by a very diverse, young and old audience. Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So incredible. You know, there's a lot of love on our show here, and with our viewers, our lovely viewers watching. And Hannah, love you, Aunt Claudia.
That's my niece.
She's a lovely too. Welcome to the Jim Masters Show, Hannah. Is she East Coast, West Coast?
That's Melissa's daughter, Hannah.
Oh, that is. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's my Hannah.
Oh. She's around the block. She's in this block,
Now
that block.
she
She's
moved
on
it
that block.
It's away, but she used to live down the block. Yes. She's my girl.
And look, there is one as well, Emily.
That's my, that was the biggest Taylor Swift. That's true. You see what Emily's saying?
Yes, I
Bill
do.
Clinton play on
This is,
Arsenio Hall
Claudia's daughter.
that was as big as an endorsement for Bill Clinton in that time. That's true.
That is so incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
so many wonderful stories and so many incredible people. Hollywood Squares too. There was time with Hollywood Squares. Tell us about that.
Well,
You've done it all, Claudia.
we all grew up watching Hollywood Squares.
Yes.
And on that first show that I did, photo play, Peter's daughter, Suzanne Laycock Browning, was one of the producers. I met her then, and she's still my friend, Peter's daughter, and have been in touch with her all these years. And so I was, so then I got this, and then I was out of work, and my friend Michael Levitt was going to be producing the new, that's very
Congrats,
nice.
Claudia, on all your awards. Keep them coming.
They were going to do a new Hollywood Squares, and he took me to lunch at Jerry's Deli and asked me if I would want to do it, and it didn't really interest me that much. But I said, okay, I'll do it, because he was going to co-executive produce it with Henry Winkler.
Wow.
So two fabulous guys, and we had a great time, and I put the bodies in the boxes. And what we changed, because we kind of took over the show from when Whoopi was the center square for a long time, and they were concentrating on more contemporary people. And we decided that we wanted to pay homage to the classics. So we had, oh, thank you. So we had Charo on, and we had Marty Mull on, and we had Betty White on, and we did special weeks and Blondes Have More Fun, and we did Game Show Week, and we did all of these specials with people that we loved very much. And
with Tom Bergeron at the helm.
And Tommy was the host.
There's
no one like
a
him.
great,
There's no one like Tom. No,
guy.
no one. He's one of a kind.
Yes.
Kind and gentle and generous, wonderful fellow. And
he's welcome here anytime. I'd love to post chat with him. Yeah,
absolutely. He's just
amazing,
brilliant, and he's enjoying his retirement. Thank you very much.
You can plug him into anything, and he can do everything.
Anything, and he's always, he's been around so many fabulous people for so long that I've called him to speak about people who now no longer with us. Somebody passes away, a famous comedian or contemporary, and he invariably makes himself available to say a few kind words about his colleagues. That's a wonderful
Peter Marshall and others.
That he does.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. Yes, exactly.
When
so we had a good time.
I was going to say, speaking of that, when you're calling upon people through Entertainment Tonight to speak when those pass, you guys are doing these fabulous segments, and unfortunately, there's been many that have to have been done with the passing of some of the, incredible people, James Earl Jones, and recently Richard Simmons, and our mutual friend Tom St. Of course, you were one of the, who told me today when he reached out, you're one of the last people to talk with Richard Simmons.
That was quite incredible. I've known him just by booking, as a booker. I booked him a number of times on the Arsenio Hall show. And he was always fabulous. On every show that I've ever done, on Joan's show, I've always booked Richard. And then he became a very private person for a long time. And frankly, that's his business. It doesn't matter why to me. Exactly, it doesn't matter why. It's just his life. He was a public eye and a very public person. and a fun person and a caring person and a
Yes.
helpful person
Yes.
for a long time. And then he decided, now it's my time to just be quiet. And that's what he did. And then in March, suddenly I was seeing, and I'm a very good old friend of his team, his rep. And suddenly I saw that he was posting stuff. So I asked my buddy, I said, is that really him? And little by little, he said, yeah, that's him. He's sort of back in his way, in the way that he wants to be. And I was like, that's fabulous. And we got some quotes from him, and he was very grateful. Richard was very grateful that we were, sending so much love and gratitude his way and all of that. And I was always in touch with his rep, Tom Esty, and Tom told me how much Richard loved me and how much he was so happy that it was keeping him safe and all of that. And one day I'm in my office and my phone, and we don't have landlines anymore. We only have they only use cell numbers. So my cell phone rings and I turn it over and it says Richard Simmons. Hello? Who's this? It's Richard.
Right.
Well, we had the most
Yeah.
charming conversation. He called, which I later found out. He was talking to Tom about I just love what Claudia tells you, and it's so nice of her that she wants me to be well and happy and healthy. And Tom said, well, why don't you just tell her yourself? Give her a call and tell her yourself. And so he did. And he said, Claudia, I can't believe all of these people still want to hear from me. And they still want to tell me how much I mean to them.
He was active on social media and everything. Yes.
Yes. He received all the gratitude from his fans whose lives he had changed. He didn't, it was not nothing, as my mom used to say. It was very big to him that he made a difference in these people's lives, not only losing weight, but just personal issues and all of that. And so that's what he said to me. He said, I can't tell you what it means to me that you talk to Tom and you're so kind about me and kind to me. And I just wanted to tell you that it's just unbelievable that all you people still want to hear from me. I said, Richard, we love you. And all that matters is that you're okay. Because a lot of people didn't see you for a long time. And so people tell stories and they make up stories. And I reject all of that. And if I ask Tom, how you doing? How's Richard doing? And he says, he's okay. Please believe me.
I asked Tom as well, because I was communicating with Richard and he was saying the same exact thing. And we had on when Richard was still with us, because it was so shocking, because it was Richard Simmons and Dr. Ruth within the same period of time that had passed, icons in many of our lives. And we had just had Patrick Leonard on, the incredible composer.
Yes, because I had Patrick Leonard on the day that he died.
The day he passed. And this was a week or so maybe prior to Richard, unfortunately, suddenly passing. And there was the talk that Patrick and Richard were working together on the music for a Broadway play on Richard's life, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he was. They had been introduced. Tom actually introduced them because Richard had this idea that he wanted to do a musical and he wanted to write the lyrics, which is a charming idea. And as Patrick said, because we did an interview with Patrick as well, and Patrick was extremely generous and patient, because Patrick is a well-known, well-established, award-winning songwriter, and he received Richard's lyrics with kindness and appreciation, because, as he said to us, these are his words. So it was his job to put them to music, which he did. He didn't have any idea whether there would be a future to it, but as long as Richard wanted it done, he was happy to be on that ride, And then he took a fall, and his housekeeper companion wanted to take him to the hospital. And Richard said, "No, it's my birthday. We'll go tomorrow." And that's all he wrote. So it's very sad for Richard, but more sad for his brother and his family.
Yeah.
We spoke to Lenny too, and you know, it's sort of sad that he lived all that time by himself. I mean, not by himself, but quietly. Not the big sparkly guy all those years, but he just was in a quiet, peaceful place. And then he decided to come out of it like a flower and come back into civilization. And then he died.
And all of the love was there for him, and people, the outpouring of support was.
It was always there.
For
Always there, yes.
For the viewers that are watching, who aren't sure, you know, we're talking a little broadcasting shop here, both working in these industries. Tell people, so you're, of course, the beloved Entertainment Tonight, supervising producer, one of several there, takes the village.
Hosted by Nichelle Turner and Kevin Frazier, who just won the first host daytime Emmy Award ever. That was given a new category. They won that, and the executive produced. Look at how beautiful they are. They're like the top of the wedding cake. They're so elegant, and by the way, fabulous and funny and smart and helpful, and it's a joy. And I was lucky enough to be there with Mary Hart in the 90s, and she is, I call her the queen of entertainment news shows. And I was there with and Rob Weller did another show I did, and there's delicious Lisa Gibbons, and John Tesh and Mary Hart actually came back to ET a couple of years ago because John wrote a book, and Mary came on with him. And you know, this is like the best. This show, ET.
Because John went through cancer. He's talked about his cancer story and his cancer journey.
Yes, he did. But he's on the road again, and he does this podcast, I believe, with his daughter.
Garden City, Long Island, where he's from.
Garden City, exactly. You know,
he was a guest on our show recently too. If you want to see that, everybody, John.
He's a darling guy, and you know what? I remember in 1996. That's when I first worked at ET, and I remember being outside on the lot his last day, John's last day at ET, when he decided to leave ET to pursue his music.
His music,
right? Familiar with Stephen, with like no regrets. And I said, you know, like, what made you do this? Make this big decision to leave this show and pursue your music? And he said, well, what this show gave me was an audience. You know, he was a sports guy before he got ET.
Yeah, and he used to do Channel 2 News, WCBS TV in the 70s.
So he said, so I developed this audience all these years of doing ET, and I need to do my music. And this audience will now be able to hear my music, and I will be able to make a living doing that because of the gift of Entertainment Tonight. And I never forgot that, because that's the EMMYs, as we say. That's the truth.
I was,
he's a lovely, generous guy.
So talented,
kind and sweet, and beautiful wife, and
Connie Selica,
yes, Connie, and the family, and so yeah, they're great people, and it's and ET is a family. I always tell people it has to be like a family, because you spend more time with these people than with your blood family. And it's hard to. And
it's fast paced, right? It's a fast
paced. It's and every day changes. You know, you sit in a meeting and you think that you have the rundown, and then at 10 o'clock, somebody magnificent passes away, and then you have to change gear. And you have to start building an obit piece. A little secret, which is not really a secret, but you know that there are certain elements of obits that can be prepared, shall we say.
Right.
If someone
Somebody's
is elderly,
ill,
if
somebody's
someone is
older.
ill, all of those things. Not always, but mostly at the moment that this news breaks, and it's now with the internet, you used to have to wait for that information. Now you
Yes.
know it as soon as it's announced, right?
It's
Um,
instant. Yeah.
that's
You
right.
guys do an absolute, I always look for, I always would go to Entertainment Tonight. You know, I'd go to local news and everything else. I'd always go to Entertainment Tonight. And then at 9 o'clock, go to CNN and Larry King, because Larry would then assemble people who knew that legend that passed
Correct.
and bring them all on to tell their stories. And I miss Larry King, and I miss that whole thing they used to do on CNN.
But we have to do that early in the morning. So when Phil
Yes.
Donahue passed away, we have the gift of Entertainment Tonight is an archive that goes back to 1981. So we have shot with most everybody living and elderly now, right? So when Phil passed away, we go into our vault and we assemble clips of the oldest to the most recent. Plus, I sat at my desk and I got interviews with Geraldo and with Sally Jesse, because I had a couple of years ago, I did a series called TV Titans, talk show classic guys
Yeah. Yeah.
and gals. And so our producer in New York drove up to Sally's place. She lives in upstate New York, and Geraldo happened to be in the city at a hotel, and we did an interview with him, and they put that in the piece, and nobody else had that. And ET, we like an exclusive, and it was magical because there were beautiful tributes to Phil, and that's the energy of a news show, day and date.
Yeah.
And now we're doing these other longer network, like what's on BET tonight is a James Earl Jones special.
Yes.
That is a co-production between ET and BET, and it's all ET's vault material.
The vault of material.
Over the years, stage and screen and all of that, magnificent.
Tell, we're talking shop again, broadcasting, which I absolutely love. For those watching who don't know what a supervising producer would do on a show like Entertainment Tonight, you and I were chatting before we went live. You're in there 7 a.m. What is a day? No day is the same, but what is a day like, and what are some of the elements of what you do there to make the magic?
Well, it's not very magical at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm here to tell you, because it's dark on the way to work. It's still light, but in about
put the coffee on, right?
It's going to be dark because I leave my house at 20 to 7, because fortunately I live right near the studio. That's as much of a commute as I like. I do have friends who travel for, 3/4 of an hour. No, I did that already in New York on 3 trains and a bus to get to Queens College. I don't want to do that anymore. Anyway, I get there and we do a morning meeting and we do a rundown of the show, and everybody has their own lane. There are people who work in film, and some people work in TV, and some people work in music, and some people work in breaking news. The news desk is a whole other brilliant entity of people, and if there's news breaking, they have to call the police department and call the fire department and all the local agencies, and they're on that all the time. And in my case, I would say that my lane is legends and classic people. One of the most recent interviews I did that took me a long time to do was to go to Dick Van Dyke's house. That was
you and I were emailing about that.
I love to do.
I said, adopt me.
It was a great. It was a great win. I had worked on it for a long time. He's a fabulous guy. I saw him in Bye Bye Birdie on Broadway. And it finally worked out thanks to a great and kind, there we are.
There you are.
That's Dick, and that's his beautiful wife, Arlene, in the black leotard next to him, and that's me, and that's Rachel Stern, our field producer, and that's there's Kevin Frazier, and there's Michael DeLazar, our director, and our crew, and a friend of the family, and we were there at his house, and with his treasures. He lives in a magical house.
Yeah.
They live in this magical house, and they have a wonderful marriage. You know, she's in her 50s and he's going to be 99.
Unbelievable.
But he is fabulous. We were setting up in the living room, and he came into the room from the back of the house, and he just, hello, so what are we going to talk about today? And have you here? And
did he start dancing too?
And then I'm thinking it's Dick Van Dyke, you know.
Dick Van Dyke.
Dick Van Dyke, yeah. So that's the joy of this job. And then we have fabulous editors and directors who take that material and turn it into a piece. And that was, and Dick was the final cog in the wheel of the greats for that week. We had William Shatner, we had Marla Gibbs, we had Susan Lucci, we had Barbara Eden, and we had Dick Van Dyke. So it was kind of a magical week of greats, I must say. I'm always very grateful when people say, yeah, I think they're going to do this, because not everybody says, okay. But there are amazingly people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s who are still vital and remember the stories and want to tell them and want to work, by the way. They want to be seen so that they can be remembered. And I'm here to remember them and to help that. You know, that's a challenge because fortunately, my executives, Erin Johnson and Whitney Neville and Leslie Kawaguchi, they understand the value of legends and experience, that those people are worth the time that we spend with them for 3 or 4 or 8 minutes to tell their story and let them tell their own story so that young people can learn about them, because it's important. Because the world is not only Taylor Swift, because Taylor Swift's mother would like to see Barbara Eden, right? So I think that there's something for everybody while we work on enticing and engaging a young audience at Entertainment Tonight, which we do every single night, every minute of every night. Every once in a while, we're just going to give a little salute to the history of the entertainment business, right?
Yeah.
Because, but interestingly enough, here's what's cool.
I'm so glad you do it too. I'm so glad you do it.
On my wall in my office, I happen to have the review of the very first episode of Entertainment Tonight, September of 1981.
81.
Why I have it, it's a story I'm not going to tell you. It's too silly. But anyway, in this review, the capsule version, the summary of the review is, why will anybody care what the inside of Burt Reynolds' house looks like? I don't give this show 6 weeks. And we just started the 44th season. So just watch the show, enjoy it. Every night you're going to find something that is going to entertain you, and you're going to learn something. And you get to see them, look at them, my buddies. So, and I'm grateful to be there. I'm grateful to be there every day. You know, it's kind of a wonderful thing.
It's extraordinary. It really is. And you're loving the ride. And I mentioned also too, we didn't touch on it yet, but maybe you could slip it in quick, politically incorrect too, working on that. Yeah.
Oh, well, I got politically incorrect. I was in between jobs, and my friend called me. She had been working there. Oh, my friend Joy, who was in the Arsenio picture. She was with me at Arsenio. She went to work at Politically Incorrect with Bill. And she called me one day. I wasn't working. And she said, so I'm leaving Politically Incorrect, and you want that job? So I said, well, why do I want that job if you're leaving? She said, because it's a good job, and you should have it. I said, oh, that's a good point. So I went and I met with the executive producer, Marilyn Wilson, and I had sort of known Bill because I booked him as a comedian on the Arsenio Hall Show. At that time in the 90s, he was doing his political humor and he was brilliant. But a lot of the guys and gals around him were getting sitcoms. He was not a sitcom guy. He's a brilliant political commentator and humorist. So that was a little frustrating time for him, I recall. But then I went there and she hired me. And it was an interesting experience, got to book interesting people. I booked Sarah Silverman the day after she went on a rant, a kind of a, I can't even say, she used a word about a nationality that was inappropriate at the time, but she didn't mean it because she's not a mean-spirited person. She's a dear person. And I basically gave her a start on Arsenio, and she called me and she said, you put me on the show. I need to explain this. So I did. And, but the moment that I will never forget about working at Politically Incorrect was 9/11. So we saw what happened. And 9/11 happened to be my anniversary too. My husband's now gone, but it's always my anniversary on that day. And as my kids say, good things happened on that day also. So we get this news and we knew that obviously we couldn't do a show that night. Nobody did anything that night. Everything was shut down. But what we discovered was that one of our guests for the next night we couldn't locate her. And she turned out, her name was Barbara. Her husband was Ted, and he was the Attorney General. I'll think of his name. She was on the flight from Boston. She was supposed to travel on Monday, but it was her husband's birthday, so she decided to travel on Tuesday, and she was in one of the ill-fated planes. So when we finally did the show a day or two later, maybe Thursday, we left a seat open for her. And that was very sad. And it's always sad. Every September 11th, it's always sad. And Bill did a great job. And he took a lot of heat for what he said that night. It doesn't matter now. Because the end of the story is that he is now doing the show that he was meant to do in real time. It's a brilliant show. It was meant to be on cable so that he could say his piece and speak in his language and not have to worry about censors and have the guests on that he wanted and not have to worry, oh, they don't want to have, I don't like, no. This is real time with Bill Maher. It's his show, his call. Watch it, don't watch it, up to you. He's going to do that show, and it's brilliant. And they just got picked up for 2 more seasons. So, and by the way, when I look at his roster, he has a lot of the same people that were there at Politically Incorrect in that year. And so it was an interesting experience. I didn't stay there very long after that, but I had an interesting time with him. Because he's a very interesting dude. Have you ever met him or talked to him?
I haven't had a chance yet.
He's a brilliant.
So would love to, yeah.
He's a brilliant.
He really is. You can have fabulous conversations with him.
He's kind of the best way I can describe him as a solitary man. My friend Chuck LaBella books his show called Club
Random.
Club what? Club Random.
Random.
Yeah. And so he and Chuck books his guests on his show.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah.
It is very cool. Oh,
sitting in those chairs and it's casual and have a cocktail
and all of that. And that's just Bill. But he's a solitary guy. He lives in his own lane and he doesn't care what you think about it because he's really not sharing that information. If you find out about it, okay, but he's not going to tell you yes or no. He's just he's a smart guy, loved his mom, and East Coast guy. You know, I think he's from Jersey.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, so that was a very interesting experience for me and for everybody that worked there, and I'm glad I made a stop there.
Is
Yeah.
there anybody that you wish you could have met and or worked with or had an opportunity just to be in the same room with that you haven't? Maybe they're no longer with us. Are there a few people that you're like, gee, it would have been wonderful if we had the opportunity
Judy
to
Garland.
Judy Garland, yeah.
You know, here's the thing. I actually once when I was in my singing era. Now the kids say era, right? So I was in my singing era, and I was singing background for Melissa at a big gala for Alan and Marilyn Bergman. By the way, do you know who Alan Bergman is? Alan
Of course, you're
So
responsible
it's
for
his
so much
99th
music.
birthday today.
I
Happy
know.
birthday, Alan.
Yeah, and you're from New York. Are you supposed to say era?
Era.
Era.
Well, because I went to the High School of Performing Arts,
And they made
taught me
sure
how to
that
speak,
they
right?
drilled it out of you.
But
right?
you know what? I think that I'm pretty sure that I pretty much sound like a New Yorker. My favorite story is the first day that we moved here, when the movers took my kids' bikes out of the moving van. In order to get them out of the way of the boxes and all that, I said, just go for a ride. And in 5 minutes, Amanda came back. She fell and she broke her tooth. So on Monday, that was on a Sunday. So on Monday, I found a dentist, a pediodontist, and I checked in and I gave him the information. And this young girl, the receptionist, said, "Do I sound as weird to you as you sound to me?" So I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I do.
Are you still singing?
But anyway,
Are you singing too? Are you still?
no. Well, you know, we sing at family occasions sometime. My husband used to be the family accompanist, but now that we don't have that, he's not around anymore. We do sometimes encourage other people to play, and they do. And we have some songs that we enjoy, and Melissa's holiday parties are the talk of the town for generations. Go and find a clip of Betty Davis talking to Johnny Carson about, and Johnny says, "And what did you do for New Year's Eve, Betty?" Yeah. And she says, "I went to the Valley." He said, "You went to the Valley?" "Yes, I went to a New Year's Eve party at Melissa Manchester's house." Yes, she did. Jose Ibert, the famous hairdresser, was invited, and he brought Betty Davis as his guest. And our friend said, "Melissa, is that Betty Davis?"
Is that Betty
and Melissa
Davis?
said, I don't know a Betty Davis. And Harriet said, "No, it's the Betty Davis." She had a perfectly lovely time. She sat in one chair the whole night. She had drinks and cigarettes. And she talked to all of our friends and family, and that was Betty Davis New Year's Eve in Encino.
And I highly doubt, imagining how beautiful the home and comfortable and warm Melissa's home is, that Betty did not walk into the entranceway and say, "What a dump."
No, she was charming. She was charming. I actually did book her on Arsenio, I'm pretty sure. She had a lovely assistant.
You booked so
I've been
many
really lucky
people.
that way. You know who
Chris Rock,
I think
Rose,
yeah.
George Wallace, Howie Mandel, Chris Rock, Chris Tucker, Martin Lawrence, Ellen DeGeneres, Margaret Cho. I mean, you were booking them all.
We were discovering them, actually. We used to go to this club in South Central called the Comedy Act, and that's where we saw Martin Lawrence and Bernie Mac and Chris Tucker, and and remember, we were two white girls from New York City going into South Central, and everybody it was nothing. We were just safe and kind, and they were funny, and we had a great time, and Arsenio gave us the liberty to make choices. And all we wanted to know is that people were new The material was unique and funny, and not only funny once. When we went to see a young comedian, we had to see enough for 2 sets, because what if they were really great one night and Arsenio says, book them again? And then we go like, oh no, they don't have a second set. Well, that's not an option. So we worked hard with the comedians on their sets, really did. And years later, when we did the reboot, and I had this comedian on the show, and I always went back to their dressing rooms to check on the material to find out what the in and out line is. And I was talking to this guy, and I finished that, and there were like 5 girls in the dressing room. And one of the girls says to me, you should book her. She's funny. So I looked at her and I said, what's your name? And she said, Tiffany Haddish. And I said, should I know you? And they said, yes, you should. So we spoke, and I arranged, and she arranged to go up at the Laugh Factory with my friend Jamie Masada's club on Sunset. And she was brilliant right away. And I told Arsenio, and he said, bring her. And she did her Black Unicorn bit, and she killed. And they booked her to do sketches. And one night I was sitting on the side of the stage, and we had a big monitor on the side of the stage, and they would put up the sketches, the videotape sketches. And Tyler Perry was sitting there and watching. And it was a sketch, I Married a White Man. And here was Tiffany married to a guy with a pocket protector, like an insurance salesman. And it was hysterical. And Tyler is looking, and he says to me, should I know her? And I said, you should know her. And in very short order, she had a meeting with the talent department at his company. And then she got a role on one of his series that was on Oprah Winfrey Network, I believe.
Mm-hmm. OWN, yeah.
And the rest is Girls Trip and everything else that followed, and her gigantic career. And we're in each other's lives forever, even if we don't see each other all the time, because she even wrote about it in her first book, Black Unicorn, because it changed her life. The Arsenio moment changed her life, and I love her a lot. And that's my blessing, is that I've gotten to meet all these extraordinary people along the way who turn out to be really wonderful people. Even Elizabeth Taylor. You want my Elizabeth Taylor story?
You got it.
Okay. So I booked Elizabeth on the show through Jose Eber. He helped me book her because Elizabeth Taylor. So we have a date. We have a time. I get a call. My talent department assistant buzzes me, and she said, Elizabeth Taylor's on the phone. You're like, what? So I pick up the phone. Hello, this is Elizabeth. Is this Claudia? I said, yes, it is. How are you? We chat. So what can I do for you? Well, it turned out that when the people at another late night show, I'm not going to say the name, found out that she was going to be on the Arsenio Hall show, basically threatened, called her office, Miss Taylor's office, and threatened that she would never be welcome with on the Tonight Show if she were to set foot on the Arsenio Hall show. And she said to me, no one tells me what to do. It sounded like something my father would have said. He said it many times, by the way. Pop said, don't tell me what to do. And there was Elizabeth saying, no one tells me what to do. I am going to be at the Arsenio Hall show. I'm looking forward to it. So I will see you on whatever night it was, and we're going to have a really good time. And we chatted some more, and that was that. And she came on the show, and she wore a leather jacket, which she said the reason why she wanted to do the show is because she wanted to do woo, woo, woo. She wanted to hear it, and she wanted to do it. She was there with Arsenio. We had a swell time. And sometime later, she did actually go on the other show because, after all, who is going to tell Elizabeth Taylor that they're not welcome? No one. And scene.
It's kind of like the Joan Rivers, Johnny Carson situation when she went over to
Kind of
Fox.
like, yeah, because people try to threaten you, and all you can say is no thanks, you know, and you take a risk, you take a chance. All right, well, so we'll see how it ends, but it always ended happily. And Hollywood Squares all ended happily. We had brilliant people. My favorite moment, I think I told this when I did the show, when I did the Hollywood Squares show about Alec Baldwin. We made donations to the Center Square people, generous donations to their charities. Some people just took the money, but mostly we offered donations. And one time when Alec was on a couple of times, maybe 3-4 times, and we were backstage, and I thanked him so profusely for coming back and doing the show again, and we loved having him. And he said, Claudia, I don't have this kind of money to make a donation to my charities. One charity was to support the workers who cleaned houses and were waiters and dishwashers. He said, I don't have this kind of money. And frankly, I don't know why more of Hollywood doesn't volunteer, doesn't want to clamor to be on Hollywood Squares for this generous donation. You mean? I said, you know what? They don't. So thank you. And thank you for your generosity and graciousness to have some fun with us and bring a donation to these needy people. So that's my blessing, is that I have shared air with these wonderful people, all the way to Dick Van Dyke and Barbara Eden, and Shatner is unbelievable. You know, he's never he's on and on. And all of these people, by the way,
yeah.
When Dick Van Dyke accepted the Emmy for his special, that was really actually won by his wife and the producing team, he was saying to the audience, to the people in the press room, do you have any work for me? Because all they want to do is work, because that's what artists do. They want to work.
Yeah. I've done a radio show a long time, and a TV news magazine show that comes out of New York with, here's a name that you'll recall. We still work together. We've worked together for many years daily. Doug Llewellyn from the People's Court.
Sure.
We've done a lot of wonderful things with William Shatner. Shatner's absolutely, some of these people that you talk about, Dick Van Dyke, Barbara Eden, William Shatner, Mel Brooks. I mean, God bless them all, right?
He's doing a movie now. He's doing History of the World Part 2.
Right.
But you know what? But I will say, I would give anything. Maybe he'll hear me. I would give.
Mel, if you're watching,
I booked Carl many, many times because George Shapiro was his nephew, and that's my buddy. And Carl was wonderful. I went to Carl's house. You know, that Mel used to come over, and they used to eat dinner on snack tables and watch TV. I think Monday nights. But Mel is a little harder to get these days, although he's making History of the World Part 2, and he was just honored again. And I think he was just 95, 98, something. And he's a Brooklyn boy. Carl is from the Bronx. He's a Diva Clinton guy. And they're the best. They're just the best. And they do have gratitude about their lives, I think.
Absolutely. I remember seeing that picture that had Mel Brooks, Dick Van Dyke, Carl Reiner, and Norman Lear together.
Oh, yes.
A few years back.
And Norman was.
Did you work with Norman?
Oh, yes, we did. Kevin Frazier did the last interview that Norman did at his office. He couldn't have been more charming, had all the stories, wouldn't let us go. Same thing for Bob Newhart. Kevin did the last interview with Bob Newhart, and the great honor was that when the family made a memorial, they had a private memorial service recently, and they contacted me because they wanted to get permission to run the obit that we ran for Bob on Entertainment Tonight, and they did, and they invited me and Kevin to be guests. It was a very small audience, like 100 people, and very esteemed guests, and then me and Kevin, and they had a huge screen in this location, and they put up the ET piece, and it was just grand, and his grandchildren were there, and his daughter was there, and they gave me big hugs and thanked me, and were so gracious for our care for their father and grandfather and uncle, and it was Bob Newhart, you know.
That is something that I have to.
True legends.
Yeah,
One of the
absolutely.
true legends. Yeah.
And I have to tell you, that's one thing about that show, Entertainment Tonight, you guys are very good at, and you're working, you know, on this. All of these, when you're talking about the legends, and when it is a piece, maybe looking back at their life or things that they're working on now, or if it is sadly a obituary piece, always very tasteful, and there's a lot of warmth. You do it in a way where we feel very much like we're for the ride. We're in the room.
For you. It's for you.
Very warm, very caring. And in this business of gotcha and crazy and a lot of other stuff out there, it's done in a very classy, tasteful way, which to maintain in this crazy world, I think is a very special thing and a beautiful thing, Claudia.
I think that's true. And I also think, sorry, I think that there are different shows that approach celebrity news in different ways for different audiences. But I think Entertainment Tonight is the North Star of entertainment news broadcasting. And I think that we can have fun sometimes. And I think sometimes we can be respectful. And fortunately, I work with a team of people that we work together. And so when I read a script, and we all read the scripts that are created for all these pieces. And if I read a script for one of my segments, and there's like a tone I have a little question about, or a word out of place or missing, the person on the other end of the phone is respectful, and we have a reasonable conversation until we agree on a solution. Because I don't want to insult anybody. Nobody wants to do that. Sometimes there's the topic, you know, the person who is being highlighted has kind of a fun point of view, and you can be a little frisky. But if I'm talking about Norman Lear or Dick Van Dyke or Barbara Eden, there has to be a modicum of respect with it, with some
Mary
levity
Tyler Moore,
when it's appropriate.
yeah.
That's okay. Sure, absolutely. I don't think there's much that you can say about James Earl Jones that doesn't scream legend for all times, not just because he's the voice of CNN or Darth Vader,
Right.
But because there will never be another like him. Never.
Do you? I would imagine there has to be times, maybe all the time, when you're working on these pieces, really trying to capture the feeling and the essence of these people in the window of time that you have, and to do it in this beautiful way. There's got to be times when even you are, maybe it's somebody that you really admired, you always followed, you've always loved, and now you're doing a piece on them where it's very difficult, where there's tears and you're stopping and pausing and let's pause and let's get a cup of coffee and come back, where you're actually emotionally, I mean, you got to get it out, you got to move fast with it, but you're emotionally really wrapped up. I'm sure there's many occasions where this happened to you.
Well, the hardest part is if you do an interview with Liza Minnelli and Lorna Love, for example, that took 30 or 40 minutes, and you have to cut it down to 3.5 or maybe 8 for an extended version that goes online. And that's very hard because there's more beautiful conversation that was captured, but we're not doing a 1 hour special on, we're just doing an interview with wonderful people and we have to cut it. But sometimes there are opportunities to find and use that material again. And I think that that's what these specials give us, is that we can find these gems and use them, you know?
Exactly. And I'm sure there's times when it's somebody that passed that you really admired, and here you are, you have to tell the story and you got to capture the essence of who they are, but it's actually emotional for you because you really liked that person that you
It's
are.
emotional for me because it's emotional for me often because I have a long view of these people. And my colleagues who are wonderful and talented and smart, they have just been informed about them. But I have actually seen them work all career, you know? And so the fact that I get this close to them now is miraculous. But it's my, again, it's my blessing. It's my destiny. I used to say, when I first got into doing this job, I did an interview for some magazine or something with a bunch of other talent people. And I said, it was my destiny to do this job. I didn't study for this job. I didn't train for this job. I told you I didn't even think I was qualified and was going to quit. But it's my destiny to share my life's experience with this work, that I get to book Elizabeth Taylor on the Arsenio Hall Show, which is a show for young people. Oh, you know, when I booked Elizabeth Taylor, I took a walk through the offices, and the kids were mostly young people at Arsenio. And I remember saying, did you ever hear of Elizabeth Taylor? And a couple of them said, oh, she's the actress who was married a lot of times. They didn't know Butterfield 8. They didn't know Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. They barely knew Cleopatra. They didn't know Suddenly. They didn't know They didn't know any of it.
No.
Because they just got here.
Yeah.
And dare I say, there is a missing piece.
Yeah.
For a lot of people who work in this industry. There's no sense of history. They don't care about it.
I'm hearing that a lot from a lot of people. Yeah.
Yes. The thing is that nowadays, in 1 second, you can say, who's Roddy McDowell? Well, I don't know why I said that, but who's Roddy McDowell? And in 1 second, you just Google it, and you can find out that he was in National Velvet with Elizabeth Taylor, and then he did all these other things in these movies, and then he became a great celebrity photographer, and blah, blah, blah. And now you know everything about Roddy McDowell. Well, we grew up seeing these people,
feeling it, being connected, emotionally
all
connected,
the time.
wrapped up.
We saw the
Right.
movies, that we saw them on TV, that
There
we
was
saw
an
them
investment
on the
made.
newsstand and magazines,
Right.
and they were like part of our lives.
Part of the family, right?
Which I dare say, so maybe Roseanne and John Goodman and Taylor Swift and Sabrina Carpenter, I'm just learning some of these new names, will be the future names of another generation, you know what I mean? And Jenny Garth and the Melrose Place people that are now getting reboots, that they will have a long lifespan. But in the 44 years that E.T. has been on television, I was along for the whole ride. And so when people say, some of the kids at work, they'll say, oh my God, you have so many stories. I said, well, actually, I have many more stories, but I won't bore you. And that's my good fortune, because I was raised by people who shared information. I met people. My mom and dad, when they had a dinner party in our house, whether it was in the Bronx or in Manhattan, there were ballerinas and opera singers and artists and designers and political people and thinking people. And my sister was out doing theater in the streets when she was in high school. We didn't even know where she was, but she was being creative and she was living her beautiful life, knowing exactly what her future was going to be like. You know, she knew exactly what this was going to be. She used to say when she was a kid, I'm going to sing even if nobody listens.
Because she loved it that much.
Because it was her destiny.
Right.
Because it was her destiny.
Exactly right.
You know, that's all. You know, my husband did he was writing jingles, right? Remember that?
Yeah, loved
We've
it.
been talking for 3 days. Just stop me when it's boring.
No, this is awesome.
Stephen was doing these jingles, and my sister was sitting in the living room with her guitar and strumming her little Joan Baez songs and Joni Mitchell songs. And Stephen was like, oh, she could really sing. And I think that she can have a career with that. So he brought her into the studio and to sing jingles. She was 15. And the first jingle she sang was for Coppertone. And it was called Beautiful People. Be one of the beautiful people. Beautiful people are never alone. Be one of the beautiful people. Get a deeper, darker tone with Coppertone. That was Melissa. And I remember being on the beach at Fire Island, and we had the radios on. And there was Melissa singing the Coppertone song that Stephen had written. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And one thing led to another, and they made that Coppertone commercial into a single. That was Melissa's first single. And Stephen's boss he started a little record label. But then she met Barry at Manilow, who was also doing jingles, and Merle Miller and Gail Cantor and all these Kenny Karen, brilliant people. And then Barry introduced her to Bet. And then Bet said, I'm going to be doing this concert. And I don't know. And Melissa said, are you going to have singers? And she said, I don't know. You want to sing in back of me? And Melissa said, well, I'd rather sing instead of you, but I'll be happy to sing along with you. And she created the Harlettes, and they did Carnegie Hall. And then Melissa did Carnegie Hall. Oh, by the way, Melissa's opening act at Carnegie Hall was a young comedian named Bill Crystal. He went on to be Billy Crystal and had a very nice career. We're still friends to this day. He lived in our neighborhood when he came. We all were friends in New York, and then we were friends in California.
Another Long Island guy. Yeah.
He's from Long Beach, and he has a wonderful family. And that's his brother, by the way, that made the connection with me into television. Richard Crystal is the one who told me to call his buddy and change my life. Wow. He knows that. Richard knows that he changed my life. I always give him credit for that, because I wouldn't have done it myself, because I wouldn't have known how. I had been on television as a guest. I didn't know how I got there. I didn't know that there were people that actually made that happen. Right. You know, some manager said, you go to NBC on Tuesday at 2:00 for the sound check. Okay, I'll be there and I'll bring a costume. But I didn't know that there were actually jobs. And then Richard Crystal introduced me to Chris Peachin, and there was a job and there was a career following that. So I'm lucky, blessed. And, you know, even though I didn't train for it, it was my destiny to be here.
Absolutely.
And I have all these great memories, and these people, even if they don't know me, like here's the thing. I went to the HBO, the last time HBO had a big Emmys party, and I saw Dave Chappelle talking to somebody. Now, Dave is very tall now, you know, and I'm not standing, but I'm barely 5'2". So I saw him talking to some buddies, and I just went over to him, and he was standing, and I just went right next to him, and I just tapped him on the shoulder, and I looked up and I said, hello. And he went, oh my God. And he just gave me the biggest hug, and like, oh my God, so many years. How are you? And all of that. Well, it's everything to me. It's right in my heart. Joy and I put everything into finding those boys and girls and helping them forge careers and have good lives, ups and downs, all of that. And Rosie O'Donnell was on the Arsenio show, and my mother was such a huge fan. Rosie sent her a jacket. When Rosie got her show, she sent her a bomber jacket that said Rosie. And then when Rosie mentioned somewhere that she got the flu, my mom made chicken soup and sent it over to her studio, because that's how we roll.
That's incredible. That's it. It's all started from those very beginnings in the Bronx, New York, with the family, my friend,
and how we were
all the
raised,
rest.
and how those beautiful people forged a life, you know, from nothing. My father's father was worked for the post office, so they worked through the Depression, right?
Yes.
But my mother's my grandparents were immigrants. My mother is first generation American, and she said, I'm not going to have that life. I'm going to have a good life, and then my girls are going to have a better life and do whatever you want that gives you joy, and then they were so proud of us always. We could have been shoe salesmen at Nordstrom's, and they would have been proud of us anyway, because we loved each other so much.
Which is the best, and what it's all about, my friend.
And I feel the same way about my daughters.
Oh, yeah.
We're the best buddies. You know, my daughters and I grew up together. So they're my best girlfriends. You know, sometimes when we go to shopping, it doesn't happen so much anymore, I note. But the salespeople used to say, are you related? And I say, well, yeah, those are my daughters. And then, oh my God, I can't believe it. And I always said, well, I don't know how they feel about it, but it's nice for me. Because they're the best people that I know, and I'm grateful that they're my daughters and my life. And I feel the same way about my sister and her family, and then we extend our family, and Melissa has a daughter-in-law, my dear Sarah, Nathan and Sarah, and now they have Layla. Wait a second. One moment. One moment.
Good thing that's a swivel chair.
Okay. Yes.
She's got another surprise for us.
Oh, this is my Layla.
Ah.
Where is she? That's my great niece, Layla.
What a cutie.
I love her. I love her.
Or like Rosie would say, cutie patootie.
Cutie patootie, yes. Yes. So we have an extraordinary family. It's always been that way. When I was in high school, I remember going out to lunch with a friend who was having some trouble, and she said, I wish I could be in your family. I wish I had your mother and father. And I could just be quiet and
It's a blessing.
Console her.
Yeah.
But my father was always handsome, and because he worked at night, he could always be at open school day at PS 86. And my mother, even though she went to work, do you know, Mom went to work when Melissa was in first grade, but she was home at 3:00, so she didn't even tell us that she wasn't home.
Right.
We found out when we were grown-ups.
Later on that she had
Yeah,
snuck out,
she
went
had
to work.
Yeah, she
came
had to
back
go to work.
and
Yeah. But yes, because we had this extraordinary life with these extraordinary people and a wonderful family of aunts and uncles and cousins, near and far. You know, our cousins who lived in Washington, D.C., we saw each other once a month. Either we drove down there or Uncle Stanley drove up to us. One time, Uncle Stanley drove his old car and parked it in front of our house in the Bronx and said, someone learn how to drive it. So my mom was the first person to learn how to drive in our family. But that's the kind of extraordinary family that I wish on everybody.
Yes.
And it made us the grown-ups that we are. Gratitude and humility. Gratitude and humility. That's how I try to live my life. Sometimes it's tested.
Sure. Yeah.
But
compassion, empathy,
that's
emotional
correct.
intelligence. Absolutely beautiful.
That's
one of our viewers, George Mallory, had asked. He said, Claudia, E.T. used to go to the actual houses, the backlot facades for Bewitched, the Waltons, Brady Bunch. What is your feeling about the studio backlots now being sold and the backlots and facades torn down and sort of all of that disappearing? And I know they're talking about, Television City, CBS, and Paramount now, and all these things.
They can't tear that down. That's a historical place. The main building at TV City on Fairfax. They can redo the side building where I think they don't do it anymore. They don't shoot there, but they used to shoot Dancing with the Stars, and I did other shows there. But the main building at CBS on Fairfax, that is a historical landmark. You can ask your friend Randy West, knows all about that. He's a genius when it comes to this. And the idea that these facades are being torn down. My nephew, Nathan, and his wife, Sarah, and Layla actually live around the corner from that Warner Brothers backlot.
We're Bewitched and all of that. Yeah.
And now there are already sound stages being built and office buildings. And you know what? I think it's sad, because that is part of Hollywood history, but time marches on. And there are other houses that can be used as facades in neighborhoods, just like they did with the Brady Bunch house. They fixed it up and somebody now lives there.
HGTV, what they did was incredible.
They moved into the 60s. They moved into the 60s, right? For a couple of $1 million.
Yeah.
Or they can green screen a house, and you'll never know with this AI. You'll never know whether this is really my bedroom or just a backdrop. So I think that because you know what, we're used to it,
right? And
so it seems like a shanda that these things are gone forever because we had them for so long. But you know, in a way, we have to take a deep breath and just understand it. We should learn about what was there and what there is to be grateful for that we knew about it. Maybe we saw these places. I sang on the stage at the Universal Amphitheater when it was open, and then when it had a roof on it. I went to concerts there, and now there's a Harry Potter ride. So I just have a memory of it. But at some point you can't beat yourself up and just say, yeah, it's too bad, but we had them for a long time and they're in the history books and now they're online and you can see them. And don't wear yourself out about it. Just find something new that is important to know about. Is that right? Do you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. You miss them. And sometimes you might say, oh, is there a way to, I know a couple of you have said, was there a way maybe to lift them up, preserve them, and put them in a museum or charge admission for people to see them? They're diehards.
Where is this place? And then it'll be.
Where would you go?
Down in the Midwest, and how do I get there?
It couldn't be in the LA area.
Yeah,
right.
I tell everybody they need to go to the Comedy Museum in Jamestown, New York, because Melissa and I used to go to a small community that everybody should see that's called Chautauqua in the western part of New York State, which is an arts institution that is magnificent, and it's right near Jamestown. That's the reason why I would go there. But when am I going to get to the National Comedy Center in Jamestown? I know that that's Lucille Ball's hometown, and I know that's why it's there, but it's a little bit out of the way. But a lot of people go there anyway because it's important to see those memories and the memorabilia from the great comedians that are donated there. And now Bob Bowden is going to do
the Strong Museum
game show situation, and that's fabulous because all these folks with collections, they have to sit somewhere. They can't all go to the to the Smithsonian, which is fabulous, by the way.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, that you talk about all these incredible accomplishments and all these fabulous things, and the beautiful stories that are weaved, and the tales that are weaved as you go from different elements of your life, and the people that you've met, and the people that have meant so much, from the family to celebrities to colleagues to everyday people in the supermarket, which is a beautiful story of life. And to know that through all of this, and I mentioned this to several of the guests, you have reached the pinnacle of being on the Jim Masters Show live.
Indeed,
how does that
have.
make you feel? And you're a lovity on top of it.
I will tell you that this is really funny. I do speak at colleges to students in different classes, and I have done that for a long time because, the girl does know how to tell a story. And I'm entertaining, and I know that, and people, they learn something, but they're also entertained. But honestly, I have never done an interview like this before, except one time when I actually did an interview as my sister. That's correct. We were on a tour that was going to stop in a lot of places, and it was quite exhausting. And finally, management said, "Would you just talk to this writer in Midwest USA?" And the reason why I was able to do it, because I knew all the answers. I wasn't making anything up. Whatever they asked about, and when did you first know that you were going to be a singer? Well, I knew what her answer was and all of that. And we had a great time, and it was a lot of fun and a big laugh, and nobody was ever the smarter about it. But otherwise, I am here to share my comedy and my wisdom with you alone, Jim.
I'm honored.
I really did. By the way, I want to say that I did try to set this up in my living room, which is much more attractive. And by the way, I also have all the rest of the awards in there on the piano. But I just could not get my laptop to work. And if there's anything that I'm not, it's tech savvy. And my niece, Hannah, makes her living in the world of technology and cyber security. And I dare not ask her to help me, nor my kids, because my kids, they're all tired of it. They're like, "Mom, just figure it out." So what I decided to do was not worry about that.
Yeah.
And here, this was my husband's desktop. He sat here and composed music. He watched Leonard Bernstein conducting. He watched Mozart. He watched Sondheim. This is where he lived his last days, and works for me.
It's beautiful. And it's intimate. It's like I say, we do conversations here, more than just the typical interview, free flowing. There was no pre-prepared questions. There's no teleprompter, not scripted. We're just really conversing about life and bringing it all together, which I absolutely love, because I think it's so much deeper, and people get a feeling from it, and they're left with a feeling. You will be, I will be, and all the viewers watching live, and then who'll watch this later in the archives.
And you know what Mom said, by the way? Never boring.
That's right. You keep it moving, folks. Exactly. And this really was fantastic. And I say to all the guests, I kid with them, you can get the Grammys and all these fabulous Emmys, and which you have, Peabodys and Tonys and Cleos and all the awards. But when you are a lovity on the Jim Masters Show, a lot of the guests say that their feet start tingling. One guest said,
have hats made or something.
We got to get the swag, something
right? That we're all in the club together.
One of the guests, I think it was the author, James Gavin, he said he was actually levitating when he heard he was a lovity.
Yes, because my friend Judy Marmel, she's actually the head of a company called Levity. That's a very huge comedy management company.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
You
Levity,
are,
levity is a nice. It has a nice ring to it.
it was love and levity, and it just slipped out of my mouth
Emily
when
Daney. You see Emily Daney's here?
yes.
We went to PS 86 in the Bronx together. One of my oldest friends.
That is
She's an attorney.
incredible. That's welcome, Emily. Emily's now a Lovity as well. We've got all these Lovities and our regular viewers and everybody. You are a delight. You really are. And, you know, you're very accomplished and you are a skilled professional, but you're also somebody with your heart on your sleeve. You're very compassionate, you're very empathetic. Everybody loves you. And when you came and you graciously moved some things around, like a lot of people, because we put this together, I put this whole thing together very quickly in a matter of, I don't know, 12 hours, if even that, to put together that epic Peter Marshall celebration. And you came on, and John Davidson and Mark Summers and Randy and Chris Corman, and which was really absolutely spectacular. I encourage folks to go back in our archives to watch this. And Claudia was on this sharing stories as well. It was and Bob Bowden and everybody, Ernie DeMassa. It was wonderful. And for you to do that. And then I said, I've got to have her back because I just want to chat and have a really good conversation with her. And I know everybody is excited about Entertainment Tonight and all these shows and celebrities, but just have a really good conversation with you, Claudia. And I appreciate the generosity of your time, your wit and wisdom. We're going to definitely keep the porch light on for you. Of course, spread the word about the show, as I know you do. And I hope the show met whatever expectations you had and you enjoyed the time with me as much as I absolutely have with you, my friend.
It's been fantastic. And I just want to remind everybody to watch ET on Monday for our extraordinary primetime Emmy coverage. Nobody does it like ET, you know. So I won't be there this year, but my colleagues are on the red carpet getting all those interviews, and it will be a beautiful show on Monday for everybody. And every day is an adventure at ET.
It sure is.
Shout out to Erin and Whitney and Leslie and Rachel and Emily and Simone and Nikki and Andy and Mylon and all the people in the studio on the Radford lot. I'm grateful to all of you.
That is amazing. That is wonderful. We heard from some of them too that said that they love working with you, and all of our viewers, our Lovities, have been saying some absolutely beautiful things. Maureen, one of our regular faithfuls, says, Claudia, you've been a part of some of the best entertainment to hit the airwaves. Thank you for your stellar work, and thank you for being with us this evening and telling your amazing stories. Again, some of our viewers really, really love what's been happening here. You are a class act, my friend, and truly I hope that you enjoyed the time as much as I absolutely have with you.
I had an absolutely wonderful time. I love sharing these stories because they're a life that is not usual. And it's fun because I'm really just Claudia from the Bronx.
Claudia from the Bronx. That's it.
I had some fun breaks. I met some great people and continue to do so. And, you know, I'm just grateful. And I'm grateful to you for inviting me.
The pleasure is all mine, Claudia. Definitely come back and see us, even if it's a short chat. You just want to say hi. Loved the conversation and appreciate again the generosity of your time. Loved having Melissa tuning in and commenting, at all of our regular viewers and all the new folks, members of your family and friends watching. You're a sweetheart. You're a delight, a true pro, and I love having you here, my friend. And we'll chat again soon, okay?
I hope so. Thank you so much.
Are you going to go make a sandwich now?
I'm going to see what's in the freezer. Yes, indeed.
See what's in the freezer. I thought she was going to say we're going to see what's on TV, but you probably have some nights you don't even turn it on, right?
No, actually, the good thing is that today is Thursday and today is a work in the office day. So I've already seen tonight's show. So
you've already seen. You be well, Claudia. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Jim. Anytime. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you as well, my friend. You take care. We'll talk again soon, okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Claudia Cagan. Wow. Was that not an epic conversation? She really is amazing. And again, she was with us when we did the Peter Marshall tribute special. If you didn't see that, John Davidson, legendary John Davidson was here, and Mark Summers and Randy West, and Harvey Korman's son, Chris Korman, was with us, and one of the phenomenal TV producers, Ernie DeMassa was here, and Bob Bowden, who was with us last night, Game Show King extraordinaire, and Jeffrey Mark was with us, and that was an epic, epic special that we did. You know, we mentioned some other folks too who've been with us. There's a wonderful conversation that I had with John Tesh. He was very open and real about his incredible career, his music, his passion, his love of his lovely wife, Connie Selica, of course, brilliant actress, and his cancer battle and so much more. You can see that archived. And Melissa Manchester, the incomparable Melissa Manchester, Claudia's brilliantly talented sister, has been with our show a couple of times now already. A lovety. And if you haven't seen these episodes where Melissa and I just had a wonderful conversation or two, I encourage you to go back in the archives and check that out. We also mentioned Bob Bowden, Emmy-nominated producer of some of TV's favorite game shows, reality shows. He was with us just last night. Check that episode out. It was unbelievable. Want to let you know that on Tuesday, the incomparable actress Jill Jacobson is joining us here. You know her from Star Trek, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, as well as Falcon Crest and so much more. This is a return engagement for Jill. She's excited to be back here on the Jim Masters Show Live series as well. And we are very, very excited to have her here with us. And also excited and blessed to have the incomparable Claudia Cagan. You also learned a little bit behind the scenes of what it takes to put a show together like Entertainment Tonight, the beloved Entertainment Tonight. I've always admired that show and all the different hosts and all of the way that, you know, and it's such a classy way and a very professional way they do what they do, and they do so well. And over the years, again, you've had an opportunity to see, you know, you can just da-na-na-na-na-na. I mean, how many times have we heard that music? It's a part of our lives, right? And Claudia, on all these different shows, great stories about Arsenio Hall and working with Extra and E! News and working with Bill Maher and Hollywood Squares and on and on and on. Incredible. The Joan Rivers Show. It's just extraordinary. Singing on The Tonight Show and really beautiful. And we appreciate her. 7-time Emmy winning. And I'm sure that's not the last one. Supervising producer for Entertainment Tonight. You know what was beautiful too about the conversation, the way she was acknowledging the others part of the team at ET. You know, we're saying 7-time Emmy winning supervising producer, and then she's mentioning all these other people that work there that make it the magic happen. And that's the way it works, you know, and in these industries, we talk about it a lot. You know, everything, we make it look smooth and easy and comfortable for you because we want you to not have any worries or cares and just come join us and have a good time. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of stuff that goes on to make it all happen last minute. And, you know, you got to glue things together sometimes to make the magic, but you love it. And she obviously does. And one of the things that my father has always said, my Irish dad from New York City, and I appreciate the kind words that Claudia shared about our show and about our conversation. She really is a gem of a person. And you guys know this line, and I love this line, that my father told me when I was 7 years old. And that's when I was called Jimmy because I'm the 5th James. Jimmy, anytime anybody ever says something kind or nice to you, always remember to thank them. Then ask them to please put it in writing and address it management. How true is that, right, folks? This was a fantastic episode. If you enjoyed it, we encourage you, those watching on our YouTube channel, to give this episode a thumbs up, like. There's a little thumbs up icon. Click that. And also leave a comment for us. Interact with us here at JMS. We would love that. Leave a comment underneath the episode. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. It's where there are hundreds and hundreds of episodes with some amazing celebrity friends from television and film and music and all walks of life and special guests and so much more. are with us, and you can see all those episodes archived. Leave a comment and share this episode on your social media. And to those of you who've been doing that, we say thank you, thank you, and thank you. If this was your first time watching us, well, come join us again. You know, this show, too, has been a labor of love. We started this during the early part of the pandemic. You guys know I work full-time, a busy schedule in television and radio during the day. And sometimes it gets crazy putting shows like this together, you know, night after night after night, and hundreds of them. But I absolutely love doing it for all of you. And I love all of your response, you know, your emails, your posts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can find us at Jim Masters TV. And all of the messages and the love and support for what we're doing here, sort of bringing back the lost art of conversation in style, in an interactive way with all of you. And I hope you continue to enjoy it and share it. It means the world to us. So this is your host, Jim Masters, thanking you for your time, this time till next time, inviting you to come see us again. And of course, we always say, love one another, take care of one another, and be sure and do the very same for yourself. We love you all. We appreciate you all. And come see us again right here on the Jim Masters Show Live. Be well, everybody. Jim Masters saying, take care. Cheers.